evening, everyone.
Continues.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the record, Suburbanite Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Just since we have some members of the public here tonight, this is a combined meeting. We start with a work session. At the conclusion of the work session, we go into a public meeting where public comment will be heard. But the first item on our agenda is the towing ordinance review with Chief Chamberlain. We also have our DPW director here, along with a couple of representatives, I guess, of the towing business.
Oh, so we're gonna,
Okay, so Chief?
this is ridiculous.
All right. Good evening, everyone. A couple months ago, actually, well, let me back up here. I should just introduce two tow operators, Don Morgan on the right and Dan Cianci. You've been tow operators for how many years, guys, collectively?
I've been in business in Tenafly for 36 years now.
Dan?
30.
30 years. Before I did this as a chief, or something, I was spent a lot of time in the traffic bureau, working actually directly with these gentlemen, and seeing them in action, seeing them interact with the public. Always been some great representatives of the borough, very reasonable, compassionate, and understanding of people's circumstances, things of such.
When do you call on them?
We would call on them for certain for a crash where a car needs to be towed, for someone basically who's broken down, who's not AAA and wants roadside service, for where a vehicle has been impounded because it's unregistered, uninsured, or the person's intoxicated, or there's an arrest involved. Some of the cars go back to their lot, some of the cars go to our impound lot, most of them go to their lots.
Where is their lot?
Their lot, they actually share the same property, 36 Central Avenue,
Yes, it is.
which is the old
C&E.
right? It's something so nice and close to headquarters. It's something that's very easy to get to, and for the people picking up their cars, it's very easy also to get to also too. So going back to the history, these gentlemen have been operating something under the ordinance that's been in existence since I think about 2006, unchanged. I know they had talked about making some changes in the past. Things get in the way, something, everyone's working very, very hard. I become chief, here I am on my 6th year, and these gentlemen approached me months ago, after all this time, something saying, is it possibly something we can look at a change or something? We believe that I believe it's something that the ordinance is outdated. Being that it hasn't changed since 2006, I was in total agreement. They had, in that conversation, they brought to my attention, which I had provided to you guys in the past, which was a standardized breakdown from the Garden State Towers Association. It's something. It's a standardized. It's an association. They've set fees. The state police have adopted those fees, and they're using them on a lot of the state roads and interstates. And this is something that basically is going around the state, and looking at that and reviewing it, and looking at what the costs were, looking at our current ordinance, and also conversing about the program and something how things haven't changed in quite some time. And made a recommendation to adopt the standardized rates. It's not something that was just arbitrary, that was just picked out of a hat. If they're established and other jurisdictions are going to them, and also too at the same time also too. I believe the current ordinance, I just tried to pull up before something, but I guess I couldn't for some reason. It's down. Is it down for some reason? You have right there. The current ordinance only really handled regular motor vehicles. It didn't handle commercial vehicles, whereas a lot of the towns have that. In the past, we probably, many years ago, would go out to a commercial, another agency with records to handle commercial tows. But then again, we don't need to do that anymore because these gentlemen here actually have those pieces of equipment, and there's no need to go out to these outside agencies. But the point is that the ordinance didn't cover commercial towing at all. So while I felt that the regular ordinance was in need of an amendment, this is a perfect opportunity to add commercial also too, because here we are, let's do it all at the same time. So that's how we arrived at these rates and fees. Presented to you folks. You folks had some questions and concerns. And then, since then, I met with the two tow operators, and Donnie, two of them had put together a presentation that I forwarded to Rosette, which she got to you folks, I think it was yesterday. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read it. And it is their, what they feel is their justification for why the rates should be how they are, how things have changed. And I thought it was well done, and I think it's pertinent. And actually also too, what they recommended is a compromise from the original. I'm not sure if you had seen that. There was an adjustment on some of the numbers.
Which one is that?
This is,
Is this one?
The last page?
Take it.
The
No, I have it.
justification?
Justification.
it starts off with Rob. It's a response to me. It was a communication that we had, and I'm not sure you got to read it, but it's basically, it's an adjustment to the numbers that we had sat down and talked about originally, taking into consideration some of your concerns about, I guess, the original proposal. I think it's reasonable, and like you.
Mark, did you want to ask a
Yeah,
question?
just some clarification.
Yes.
So is the tow operator's rate justification what you're proposing now? Which are the rates that, because this,
Take it.
I have the same one. Which one are you referring to?
so you've got this towing ordinance
No, this
reviews.
is what they want.
So you want the one with the $150 in call for cars.
That was the original one.
That was the original.
That was-
130 is the
Okay,
one
so
with
it is
So
the
you're
last one.
asking for the one with the one, okay, that's what I'm asking for, okay.
And this is coming at the request of the two operators here, something who would be happy to
All right,
answer questions or speak.
I have two quick questions.
Absolutely.
One is, and I'm gonna ask the gentleman here. First of all, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the reason we're doing an ordinance like this is because the police call the tow company, so that gets us involved. We have to have an ordinance which sets the rates,
Correct.
which basically provides, safety for the people that are being towed, so they can't be gouged or anything like that. This is,
Or the other way around?
the question I have is on a monthly basis, for example, how many times do you get called? Is it
In
something?
Tenafly?
Yeah.
Not very frequently, to be quite honest with you, not recently.
It depends.
It's cyclical, it depends, you know.
No, but I'm saying, this isn't something that happens a half a dozen times a day
I
or
would
even a
say,
week.
no, I'd say on average,
Hold on a second, please, I'm sorry.
on average,
Wait, because it's quite possible other people might be interested in your answer, I'm sorry.
on average, I would say maybe 2 to 4 times a week.
Most of these are accidents, would you say?
Half accidents, half impounds, I would say.
Okay. The other question I have is, since this ordinance is for towing in Tenafly, why do we have a mileage fee outside of Tenafly? Is that if you have to take a car that's, for example, in an
If
accident?
the owner requests and we can accommodate them and they wanna go outside of town, yeah, then it's.
I have an accident, I
That's
wanted to-
usual and customary in the towing industry.
I have an accident, I want you to bring it to my body shop, which is in
Correct.
the next town? Okay,
Right, so the rates are the numbers you're seeing are for within Tenafly, and then outside of it, there would be a mileage.
and so what I'm hearing from Rob is that you want these rates adjusted to the going rate, basically. The rates haven't been adjusted in what, 13 or 14 years?
Yeah, I mean,
It's not working, right?
I basically took the present rate, which is $100 for a tow, and since it was last changed in 2006, I figured out the cost of living has gone up almost 30% since then. And that's basically how I arrived at that number. And I studied my business in depth relative to the property taxes that we pay, because we're net tenants down there. Everything, all the numbers are 27, 28, 29%. So, right now the service is undervalued in my mind.
And in comparison to other towns,
A lot of,
Rob?
So here you go. There are towns just on the, probably on the very, very high end, there are towns on the low now. I believe Max would provide a couple of sample
Yeah,
ordinances.
all of them much lower.
But now Cresskill, right now is in the process of decreasing theirs also too. So the $100 one is almost, it's too low. Something, and this Garden State Towers Association that is basically being sent to all these towns, something, you're gonna see all these towns, I'm not saying go double it, but you're gonna see those numbers come up.
But Chief, those are basically the tow operators sending to different towns because they want more money. We are here to defend our Tenafly residents. We're not here to basically satisfy the tow operators. I had a very bad experience about 7 years ago. I had my kids driving them in town basically, and I got stopped, and somehow my registration expired. And according to your rules, I had to get out the car. I get my car towed. It was Friday. I had to pay $350 to get because I couldn't go for a license for a registration Saturday and Sunday, which I think was a ripoff. But that's how it is with the towing away and overnight charges, and I don't know what I have to do and stuff like that. To be very clear, those rates are sent out by the tow operators on behalf of the tow operators to different people.
What rates are you referring to?
Or the tow operators that basically are sent out by the state police at the request of to get
Well,
them.
it's an association.
Association,
Yeah.
which is the tow operators.
Yes.
So we are here to make sure that people like me do not get gouged
Mhm.
when I have to pay $300 just to get my car. And because of that,
It was towed because why? You did your
the
registration had expired?
expired. And that's where you have to leave the car.
You can't drive.
No,
You
I
can't drive.
understand,
Okay.
but it wasn't like it was towed arbitrarily.
It's immaterial. $300 is $300
Understood.
for that,
You also made another comment that I want to ask you. We're here to protect Tenafly residents. Well,
Yeah.
What percentage, roughly, of the cars you towed are towed? You tow them in Tenafly, but if people have accidents, a lot of them aren't from Tenafly. People that have cars impounded, a lot of them aren't from. Would you say a majority of the cars that you tow are from Tenafly, or
No, I really couldn't study it, but a lot of them are transient people passing through. A lot of drunken drivers, that's really most of the impounds now. In his situation, motor vehicle stops in impounds for registration, that's not done anymore in town. It's rare. It used to be quite frequent in town, in years past, but now it's
Well,
far and few
what
between.
happens if an officer pulls a car over and their registration is expired? It's not towed?
Well, that's at their
That's decided by
discretion.
us. Oh, and then we give them a call. So when they come, they're answering basically our call. They're not involved in whether it's towed or not. That's the police department call.
And another thing to
hold on.
protect,
You had two
I
people.
didn't finish. Another thing, if you really want to protect the people, you should ask them, well, do you have AAA or so? Because then they don't pay any towing because AAA is protected. So if you really want to protect them, you don't say, okay, you're gonna pay, I'll get my tow guys, and I'm gonna pay $125.
Before you go in that direction, is there a reason why we use a specific tow company rather than?
Without it.
Could we call, could a?
Hold on. I'm sorry. If a car's broken down and it's on the side of the road and they have AAA, AAA is cool.
Yeah.
If they get into an accident and the car is movable, we move to the side of the road, AAA is cool. If the car is, a lot of them, basically demolished in the intersection, we call them, because we have an obligation to do to get that intersection open right away. We're not waiting for AAA. So there's no, and that's how it is everywhere.
And when the car was like operating and moving and stuff like that, but it has an expired license,
Oh, that has to go due to, because that's impounded.
so
Because if someone takes AAA and takes the car to their driveway, they're just gonna take it out illegally again. We're taking that car, and you're gonna come, you're gonna prove to us that
So
it's insured.
what I'm saying is, it's not protecting getting the lowest cost. It's basically calling the people that you have contracts with, rather than protecting, as Peter was trying to say, to make sure they're not getting gouged. It's not happening like that. You can have insurance with your AAA, with your insurance company that tows the cars away. You can, and
Well,
that doesn't happen.
I understand that, but once again, you can't ask people to do something below their cost. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know what their cost is, and neither do you.
Okay, so, exactly, so don't bring it up.
The question becomes, how do we establish these rates?
Yeah.
All right, we had two other hands up, Lauren and then Vanu, please.
So I see that Englewood has redone its ordinance, and they've come up with a going rate of 120, and then 160, which is different from what's being proposed tonight. How do you justify what they can get versus what's being asked for here?
It's the city of Englewood, something, I mean, we don't have to follow what another town does.
I'm saying,
I-
when they redid it, it was cheaper.
But
Can
so-
I answer
Yeah,
your
please,
question?
please.
Being in the industry, I have access to all the different ordinances through other towing companies, it's a brotherhood or whatever. And I asked somebody that tows down in Englewood for a copy of their old ordinance, which was just amended last fall. So the last time there was a rate change in Englewood was in 1978. Okay, it went up to $85. So now, 40 years later, it's going up $35 to $120. So
But it's a
they were
lower
more
price
open
than
That's,
to
they're
the
do.
saying that's the
request.
going rate for this year.
Yeah, and rates aren't concrete and uniform all over the place. Like before I came here tonight, I remembered relative to private property tows, if you notice a lot of private properties now, if they wanna have a car towed off of the lot, they have to have signage up, and it has to show the rates that somebody's gonna be charged if they're illegally parked, okay? So over at the Stop and Shop, Tomorrow Towing has rates of $145 for a tow and $45 a day storage. You go over to 7-Eleven,
That's
it's
a private
$155
lot.
and
Rebooting.
$55 a day storage. So, you know, we're just trying to get it to a market rate. I mean, we can't, I wanna be able to sustain my business, you know, every year, every month, at the end of the month, when I get done paying bills, I go, "Phew, I survived another month in Tenafly," okay, because that's what it is. And my half of the business, we also do insurance claims work, which is flat and below water, so, you know, it's getting harder and harder to sustain being in business, you know, at these rates. They're, in my mind, they're very undervalued, okay? I know it sounds like it's a lot of money, and it's unfortunately, when somebody's car gets registered or gets impounded for being unregistered, but, you know, you broke the law, the police make a decision at that point, you know, and you have to, you know, we all have to pay for our mistakes, and, you know, if you're driving around in an unregistered car and the police don't want it on the road and it gets impounded, you know, it's unfortunate, but that's, you know, that's life. I've paid for many mistakes over my life, so I
Well,
understand
Okay,
that.
Vinu?
Well, wait, I just
All right,
wanna
so
follow
you have
up.
more?
So, well, we, you know, it's not that we don't appreciate your service here, we are dealing with taxpayer money, so of course, we're gonna ask the financial
Well,
questions.
this isn't taxpayer money.
Yeah, this isn't really taxpayer money, it doesn't,
This
This
is,
is-
It's resident
This
in
is the
town.
welfare of our taxpayers.
can,
yes.
Can I give you another example of
Sure.
rates? Over in Patterson, okay, one of the poorest cities in this state, you know how much they
That doesn't
charge for a
matter.
tow over there?
It doesn't
And it's
matter.
set, and it's set up, they do it a little bit differently, it's contractual,
Mhm.
$200 to tow a car in Patterson, that's what the
So
towing
they rip
operators
them
are
off.
getting
So
over
they're
there.
ripping off.
They're
the
ripping
citizens.
off people in Paris.
Well, the city of Patterson established it.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
But it's
so
the
now
same
we're
thing.
talking
That doesn't mean you have to.
Tenafly, one of the more wealthier communities in the county and in the state, and I really don't think $130 for a tow is that unreasonable. You know, there's a lot of sacrifice on our part to do this, you know, we're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can't leave the area, we have to respond within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
We also have to weigh,
Work session.
you know, Rob, would you say people aren't chomping at the bit to get this contract? I mean, are there other people, how do we choose these gentlemen?
We have one more operator who's looking to get into, actually, on the crew, but in Tenafly, what limits the amount of operators in Tenafly is that, as per the ordinance, you have to actually store the vehicle in Tenafly. So that keeps a lot of people out of town. We've had people, something that wanna come to Tenafly, but, you know, something, we feel that if we're gonna tow your car in town, we should at least offer to give it back to you in
My
town.
car was towed out of town in Birkenfield.
And what, that was,
That's probably when it was changed, that was probably Clinton Auto, and he had a lot
Exactly.
over by the old path.
that's why it isn't
Yeah,
happening.
but the ordinance, that's why he's out of the business.
Do you wanna explain why you think it's important that the cars remain in Tenafly?
As I just said, if we're gonna basically, more so for impounds, but if someone's issue is happening in Tenafly, where their car is being basically taken from them because, you know, something, they broke a law, or they lost it because of an accident, they should be able to get the car back in somewhere the car's being towed. We're not.
Hold on, Rob, wait till everybody's done cross-talking.
It's almost like a courtesy and convenience thing, or something. Basically, we're not saying, oh, by the way, we towed your car, or you satisfy, or you can go get your car to Hohokus. I mean, that would be terrible. So basically, it's consideration and convenience.
Vanu?
Yeah, I mean, actually, one of my questions was answered about the, what they get for the private lots. I didn't hear what 7-Eleven, what they say.
it's $155 for the tow and $55 per day storage.
Okay. And so my point was, you know, yes, okay, so you're looking at private lots, they're equivalent to what you know, was originally proposed. I know that it's gone down from there, but, I mean, I think it's, you know, as you said, it doesn't, just because one town is doing something doesn't mean that another, we have to decide for our town.
So I think you summed it up fairly well. The issues here are the gentleman's pointing out that he needs his business to survive, and he needs a rate increase. You pointed out that this would not be the lowest price, because there are other towns that are lower, and obviously there are other towns that are higher. We also understand that if you illegally park in private lots in Tenafly, you're gonna pay more than this to pick up your car. So with that said, I'd like to get a sense of where the council wants to go with this.
I want to make a proposal that we approve the rates of Englewood.
Before you make a proposal, could everybody else speak?
I thought it would.
No,
Can we
I'd
have a
like to go
discussion
around.
on this, actually?
I'd like to,
Let's have a discussion.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to go around and hear what everybody thinks. So you'd like, so Englewood is 120?
But Max,
Yeah.
the second one is higher than for nights, holidays, and weekends, and I think some of the other rates are higher. So
Yeah, they're
that's-
160 on weekends. But
Right, and we're 140 here in the estimate, so I feel like we need to craft our own.
Mark,
So considering what you both just said, why don't we say 120 for the daytime, 8 to 5, and the rest of it is what the chief recommended, which is lower than Englewood,
I'm okay with that.
I mean,
right?
Yeah.
I think there's also the details, right? So you have a lot of numbers in this. We're only talking about two numbers, and I
For the
think,
basic tow.
I mean, I think we should, you know, at least somebody should come up with a proposal on what all of it should be.
Well, we've got all these other commercial and decoupling and outside of Tenafly. I
We
mean,
have this.
we should probably put something in red that says, don't drive and get a DUI, and make sure you pay your vehicle registration.
If I could explain what a decoupling is, basically they've come out, they've hooked the car up, and all of a sudden, basically, we're undoing it. They've come out, they've
I
dropped what
see.
they're doing, their
Yeah.
tools from their one job, they have to be paid, you know,
Their
they're just.
time, their
Jeff?
equipment.
Right, so, just reading further down in the comments, one of the things that's being, I guess, proposed in this is a consumer price index adjustment.
Yeah, I'd like to see this
Well,
self-regulated on a yearly basis so that we don't have to come here every year and do this. I mean, we waited 13 years to come here and they've been towing it at discounted rates, so I thought that was a good idea. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you. So, really what I wanted to get was also a sense from other members of council what they thought about that aspect of it, because we haven't discussed that. We've been so focused on the rates, we're not focused on the aspect of do we want to look at this as something that's tied to an index and changes annually, or something that we want to revisit just on a more frequent basis? You know, I do have to say that I think looking at something every 20 years probably doesn't make sense.
But what's the term of the contract we're proposing? Is
Well,
this
we
a
have-
1 year?
well, this is, we're not discussing a contract
No,
right
this is
now, we're
just-
discussing an ordinance, but
Just the
it's a,
ordinance, but
it's a
what is-
reasonable, it's a reasonable
An
question.
ordinance is
How-
updated
No, no.
at,
Right.
it would have to be something established within the ordinance that the rates would be,
Correct.
a clause that would be revisited every year, every other year, every 5
Well,
years,
that's,
whatever the
that's
term.
why
It's
I
typically
want
done-
that to be
Because,
something
because an
that's,
ordinance is in effect until it's amended, so it doesn't necessarily mean.
Dan, do you have anything to
Wait, can I
say?
just respond on this point? So usually, the rates are set by the whatever contract term you'll have. Usually you don't review the rates again until your contract term is up. So if we're looking at a 5-year contract or a 1-year contract,
It's not
This
a
is an
contract.
ordinance.
It's not a
This is an
contract.
ordinance.
To hire with the-
So it's
Ordinance
not
is
a
basically
contract.
She's trying to figure out
I'm saying how
your
you
contract
employ-
with the labor.
Right, duty
with-
tow.
How long does it, do you have a contract
Right.
for a year?
What's your
An-
agreement between you
Annually,
guys?
they apply for a permit.
Annual.
Annual.
Okay, so that's my
That
question.
was the
I'm sorry.
question.
Thank you.
Mark?
Okay.
I agree with Jeff. I don't like the idea of rates being tied to some sort of automatic increase that we never see
Yeah,
again.
Yeah.
And that perhaps we would recommend they come back every
Dan?
2 years.
Dan, you have anything?
I don't say.
What
two,
I
it's actually
I
5
would
years.
agree with what
Okay.
Mark says.
I think
There,
that's,
there's
That's
absolutely,
5 years. I would
nobody's
say.
told them not to come back for another 13 years.
Yeah.
All right, if there's a permit application due in every year, I think that they should feel comfortable in saying, with that application, we need is an increase, and hopefully if it's not every 13 years, the increase will be rather minor. I would ask the council to consider the 130 rather than 120. You're kind of nickel and diming a local business in town, and if you notice, probably 20 years ago, Jeff, there were 5 or 6 people that you could go for tows in Tenafly. Now there's one. There's a reason for it. It's not a profit center, okay? And the difference between $120 and $130, the average person probably doesn't get towed more than once in a lifetime, maybe once every couple of years, unless they let their registrations expire every time, which I'm sure you don't.
It's not that, Peter.
No, but I'm just saying, for $10, it's very easy for us to sit here and say, don't gouge the public. It's $10 once, and I think you're talking about a business.
The issue is
What are you gonna do if
the
there's
rest
no,
of the vehicles.
I'll let you speak when I'm done,
Yeah.
okay? The point is, what are you gonna do if there's no towing services in Tenafly? Now you're gonna have to have a towing service, bring the cars to Bergenfield or Dumont, and that's gonna put more of a problem for your residents than the $10.
That's a hypothetical.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
speculation.
you guys can duke it out.
Okay, I don't have a problem with establishing a number, but I don't want that one number to be then we're accepting all of the rates. That's what I'm
Exactly.
saying. There are a lot of rates on here. And we should either go one by one, but that
Go
would
ahead.
be forever.
Well, I just assumed that nobody had any issues with the others, because
No.
nobody brought them up.
No,
No,
but
that's
we
not
did
what we
discuss.
discuss.
Bring it up.
discussed.
The other one, 116 in Englewood versus, it's a huge difference between $200 and $350. Those are becoming very large numbers.
Chief, we're talking about the taxpayers, but the bottom line is, you would know. When we have these tows, whether it's for accident or impounding the car, what percentage is Tenafly residents versus non-residents involved in these tows?
I haven't been on the road, something in 6 years, but I'm gonna say it's probably close to 50-50 or something. You have, we're a commuter town, but we have a lot of people coming through. I think it depends on who gets into a crash, whether it's a commuter from another town, something, or the impounds. I know that we do a lot of impounds or something, for people out of town and in town, something. If anything, sometimes if it's in town, we try and help them out, something. If we can try and do everything we can to avoid towing the car, we'll try and do that legally without getting ourselves or something in a sling. It's a combination. But if I could just add also too, something, and I understand this, the bottom line is, we're all concerned with the bottom line, but a lot of these costs also too are actually absorbed by insurance companies and crashes. So it's not always.
Yeah, most of the motor vehicle accidents, the people are covered under collision, so, it's, that base is
But not looking to
covered.
capitalize on that, but just to.
Chief,
throw that out there.
130 for me is not a problem versus the rest of them become such a huge difference.
Oh, it's commercial vehicles we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they
But big
compared
trucks.
compared to
160
the
versus 250.
160 versus 250, it's becoming so specifically disjointed, the whole numbers, that it's kind of hard to believe that numbers are.
Well, a question along that line. It says nights, holidays, and weekends, $140. Cars, SUVs, light trucks.
Yeah, like pickup trucks.
But those are those light trucks, can they be commercial trucks also, or any
Class 2
commercial?
vehicles.
It could be, but when we get to commercial, we get into weights.
Yeah.
So this is 10,000 one pound to 16,000.
Right, so if a light truck is less than 10,000 pounds, it pays the 140.
Yes,
Right, exactly.
Which is the vast
It moves up
majority.
in class, these box trucks, it is considered a commercial truck, that's medium duty.
I would tell you, if you've ever been towed like in New York off a parkway or something like that, never mind, and I don't even have a truck. These numbers are not onerous.
Yeah, but look at Englewood, trucks over 12,000 pounds, 160, and a vehicle, heavy duty vehicles, $300 per
I
hour.
have a question.
So it's a huge difference.
What's your question?
My question is, why do we keep comparing to Englewood when we're in Tenafly? This is what we do here. Our business is here. We're not towing in Englewood.
Yeah,
This
but
is talking about
we are
what we're
talking
doing
about
here.
our residents,
Well,
and we are basically elected
Most
to
of
serve
our
our
residents
residents.
don't have big trucks here, they're
Yeah, but
transient trucks.
but it's a 50-50 chance that, that's what the chief
Not the
said.
trucks.
Most of
The
our-
trucks,
The trucks are not gonna be local.
Commercial stuff, you have to have something to compare with you. Do you have apples against oranges here? Do you know what you're talking about with heavy and medium-duty trucks? No, you don't.
When it comes to commercial vehicles, the big ones, they're actually towing it with their big trucks. So even in the construction industry, when you're dealing with big equipment, there's different fees.
it's the same trucks, they probably tow the commercial vehicles in Englewood. It's not gonna be a different truck type.
No, that's wrong. It's wrong.
It's 100% wrong.
You can't tow a vehicle that is under the weight of the vehicle you're towing.
No, so what I'm
Am I
saying,
right?
over 12,000 pounds in Englewood is 160
Do you have
pounds.
any other towns?
Yeah, I got,
Bristol
I
and
made, basically, I brought over here all of them. I basically brought both Dumont and Cresskill, both of them.
Cresskill's tow rates parallel yours, okay? They were changed right after Tenafly's was in 2006, so, and right now.
The mayor
Mayor
asked me if
Mayor
I have
Romeo-
any. I have them, and I brought them, and they're in the documents that Lizette provided.
Right.
Because I specifically wanted to make sure that we don't get,
We don't have we don't actually have Emirates.
Yeah, but-
yes,
Demarest, you
At
want
the
to,
top.
I'll give you Demarest. Demarest is,
Oh, not Demarest. I'm
I
sorry,
have,
right.
I took two at random, Dumont and Cresskill, I took two at random,
It was hard to
because I
find.
figure out those are the closest one to us.
Demarest ordinance was last revised in 1996, Borough of Cresskill in 2007, Borough of Walworth in 1992.
They're all out there.
They're all outdated, okay? So you can't make comparisons with outdated ordinances. They're
We're
all,
working on Cresskills right now to update it with this. We're already dealing with it.
We tow in New Milford. New Milford is working on theirs right now to change the rates. I just talked to the head of traffic over there, and we had a discussion about it. So it's, all these rates are all outdated, okay? Englewood is the most recent one to raise their rates, but from the way I understand it, they were working on a rate from 1978, and it took them 40 years to go from $85 to $120 for a
So-
car.
Why don't we put together a group that looks at the rates and come and propose them for the town, see if we next time we are gonna have an agreement.
Why don't
How
we
can you
have
make a
DPW
comparison with
maybe
outdated
do that?
rates?
I'm sorry.
How we, I don't know anything about towing a 12,000-pound truck, right?
You
Why
can look
don't
at
we-
different towns
Yeah,
and
but-
come to
but
some
at
sort of a,
At some point, we're beating this to death, why don't we do what we agreed on? Lower the 130 to 120 for the residential vehicles,
yeah.
and whatever the rest of the numbers are, they are. I mean, how many, there's no I don't know of any residents in town that own 16,000-pound trucks that are driving them around.
I don't even think there's any businesses in town that own them.
Right, it's illegal for them to park them in their driveway, we would fine them for that, and we'd have them towed away.
Not only that, but in some ways, if we are looking at Englewood's ordinance, ours is actually kinder in part, even at a number, because they take class 2 vehicles from 6,000 to 10,000 pounds and increase it, and we'd be looking at not increasing until it hits 10.
So I'm comfortable with Mark's
So
proposal.
we're actually cheaper in those heavier SUVs.
Right,
Yeah.
certain ones.
I'm comfortable with Mark's proposal, I'm not comfortable with the yearly increase, that is a hard no for me.
Well, I
Need to review.
think,
Just let
I
them
think
come back to you.
my suggestion would be if these are the rates, when you come in to get a permit for the next year or the year after, whenever.
Revisit it every year. I'll come back here every year if that's what you want, but I'm just.
Well, yeah, it may not be necessary, because if you, let's say it's 120 for a car. In 2 years, you say to the chief, I want to apply for a permit, but I'd like 130. The chief can propose that. We really don't need to go through this dance every year. In fact, I'm not sure why we're going through this dance now, but because the impact on a resident, how many residents get their car towed like this more than once a year? And if they do, more often than not, they use AAA.
Correct.
They would have to have a car either in an accident or impounded. If it's an accident, the insurance company pays for it.
Assuming they have.
And I
insurance.
guarantee-
Assuming they have
and
insurance.
You have a
I mean,
deductible,
And-
$1,000.
No, not for towing.
No.
And if
Car insurance.
if I'm not mistaken, when I look at my insurance policy, the amount they allow for towing is a lot higher than $130. $30.
$75. $75, yeah.
Everyone has to-
But I
Everybody
think
has
that
different
we all in
policies.
agreement to the new schedule here, except if
Well,
we look,
well, why don't we speak for ourselves and not
Okay.
all of us?
the only question is the storage.
The only question you have is
Storage. Yeah, which is like $90, the other communities.
Well, that's for inside, it's very rare that's inside.
But the
Yeah,
first one we
I've
had
never
was
charged, in
70.
36 years, I've never charged anybody for inside storage, it's never been requested.
That's if you're like,
So
you're like a
it's-
Lamborghini and someone wanted, you know, so it's very rare that we're gonna do
And,
that.
and where is the other one?
It's gonna be outside.
So,
45.
If you're a Lamborghini, we're probably not.
Yeah.
We're not telling you.
So 45.
And again, 45
You're driving
versus
it around
30.
town.
In Englewood, anyway. It's 30 in Englewood.
Point
It-
two seven.
Well, it doesn't say, it just says
Okay.
storage.
Folks.
And then heavy duty is 100 versus
Nine.
180 and 90.
taking into account that the
I'm okay with the
the
storage.
numbers in Englewood may be a little lower in some instances. I don't think that this rate is onerous. It's not gonna have next to any impact at all on our residents. And it gives the business a chance to survive. I would urge you to just say this, let's go on.
So do we need to make an official?
Do we need a motion? for-
Sure.
No, just need
No.
a consensus so
Consent.
that way an ordinance can be drafted.
So I'm suggesting 120 for the residential, for the,
Time rates.
residential cars, everything else is the same as the chief suggested, and no automatic annual
Yearly
increase.
Hold on, hold on.
I'm fine with coming back to revisit it every 1 or 2 years with you guys, but I would like to see it at 130 and 140, that would be a minimum, okay? Because it catches us up with the past 13 years, all right? I mean, everything in my business relative to expense is automatic. And, can I pass this along? Okay, like, you know, there's 3 examples of what I have in business, okay? Taxes have gone up 27% in 13 years, okay? There's a couple other items on there. I just got a email from my insurance agent that my insurance is going up 7.5% this year, just in 1 year, okay? I get billed from the state of New Jersey for a thing, it's called the life use hazard tax, okay? Which 65% of it gets kicked back to the borough for the fire prevention, okay? That went from, in 2007, from $744 to, it's now $974. That went up 30%.
How many towns do you guys get to cover? For how big of states do you guys work in?
Towing in this area is a privilege that you have to apply for, like we applied.
Well,
You can't
you-
apply, for me, myself personally, we tow in 8 towns around here.
Mhm.
You tow how many
Danny tows
towns?
4.
How many
do
towns?
8. I
So
do
you
8,
have
he does
permits
4.
that tow in 8 towns.
8 towns.
Do all of these towns use you exclusively?
No, it's
No.
all
Sure.
vocational.
But
So
there's a difference.
My question is, what is the going rate in the 8 towns?
It's pretty much what it is right now, but we're trying to get everything changed. It has to go up. All the towns, all these ordinances are all outdated. And, you know, I read a couple of them to you, Demorest 1992. They're all outdated. Englewood is the most recent one that has gone up that I know of in this area, okay? Everybody else is at least 10 years old or older. So it's, you
What
know,
are the other councils responding with the 130? I'm just
this is
curious.
really the first council meeting
We're
we've
the,
done.
we're the test case?
Yeah, well, you're the closest.
They're not even
So,
telling the
no,
others, they
it's
just
just,
go home and
you
slit
know,
their wrists.
When I presented to the mayor of Cresskill what you guys have, and he's taking it to committee, and he didn't see any problem with it. When he read it, and he's like, you know,
But
you
also,
deserve it.
It's a mayor thing.
But this is me bringing it to your attention because I met with them something, and I feel something that it's warranted, you know, something, I work with, and again, also too, and I don't know what happened in the case with Max, but I've been a police officer for almost 26 years, I haven't been around for 60 something, but for 18, I work with these guys, I've seen them, you know, something, actually something, you know, something, be compassionate, something where basically, if there's certain circumstances, they work it out, you know, something.
Very
so,
compassionate.
yeah.
I did a tow for Demorest Police a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there's goodwill on our part that you don't even know about, so I'm just gonna give you
We
one
appreciate
example,
that.
and this has to
We
do
do.
with Demorest. They found somebody on Knickerbocker Road, a 93-year-old man from Passaic, okay? He left he lived in Passaic, he was going to a doctor's appointment, and he got lost, and he drove around for 14 hours, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, Demorest police found him driving erratically on Knickerbocker Road. They put him in an Uber, they brought his police car to headquarters, they called me up and asked me if I would tow the car to Passaic, and that they would pay me. And at first I said, yeah, that's fine, I'll get paid. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, and then I met the guy after I dropped the car off at his house. I said, you know, this guy, he's living in a small apartment, I felt bad for him, and I didn't even bill Demorest. So I was like, you know what, I paid it forward. I was like, it's fine. So, you know, there's goodwill that we don't share with you. But, you know, we're not all mean price gouging tow operators,
No,
okay?
we're
not.
I know,
We're not.
I know there are guys like that out there, but that's one of the
My
reasons
advice
why
to you is don't
he's
let
been
your
in business for 30 years
registration
and I've been in
expire.
business for 36, so, you
Then
know.
you put him
My
out of
son,
business.
remember when we had that,
Well, that was a good thing you did.
storm and all the trees? My son got into one, it couldn't be, they came to winch him. I cannot tell you how much they paid.
Well, I would tell you this, the body shop that I use over in New York no longer tows. They used to have their own tow truck, they don't tow anymore, there's no profit in it.
And over the years for your police department, I don't know if you're aware of it, but whenever one of their cars broke down or had an accident, I never billed the borough.
We're told for free.
It was done for free in consideration for the privilege of being on their tow list. So, you know, we're not bad guys here, we just wanna make a living and feed our families.
When the car is in Knickerbocker Country Club, they didn't charge you underwater fees.
All right, so let's vote on this, guys.
Okay,
we
so,
can let them
yeah,
go home.
Chamber, please make a comment.
No,
No,
no, how about the residents of town?
No, no,
you can speak during public comment.
I know, I will.
Well,
Jeff?
also, Mr. Mayor, this would have to go for ordinance, right?
Yes.
And there will be public comment on the ordinance.
Correct.
So, for those who want to comment,
Well, they can also comment tonight.
they can comment tonight, but also, since this is this will be a proposed ordinance, there will be public comment on the ordinance before it can be passed and adopted twice.
Yes.
So there will be plenty of
No,
time.
So-
once.
Or
Once.
once, I mean.
Where,
So we're
before,
allowed
I'm
to,
still,
at the public comment, we're allowed to
If
say
The
that,
public comment
that the
tonight,
business owner should get $130.
after
Is that
spending
what we're allowed to do?
45 minutes on this, I'd still like to get a proposal from somebody at this point.
I propose we keep the rates and take out the yearly increase, and that's my proposal.
Keep these rates.
Keep the 130,
Okay.
The proposed rates?
the proposed rate.
the newly proposed,
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, I
In
think
the
you're
memo
doing,
that
I think you're doing the right thing for all.
In the memo that says, starts with.
Yes, so I will rework the,
the memo that
how
starts
the
with
ordinance is
Rob.
supposed to look, and then
Right.
obviously that'll go for you folks for,
We'll work on it too.
okay, even better. Okay.
So now that we're geared up, where are we gonna restrict skateboards, guys?
And no, no
Thank you.
automatic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
gentlemen.
who's
Thank you for your
Yeah.
work.
Keep the chief here.
What's that?
You're
Get
up.
out of here?
Well, stay for this one thing.
Okay, Chief,
We're gonna die today.
there was a question on the next schedule. I'm gonna put in the parking lot issues in Tenafly. We discussed this about 3 sessions before.
What are you talking about?
You don't remember, Peter.
No, because you,
On the
I don't-
next schedule for the next meeting, I'll put in the parking lot in Tenafly. And I brought it up, it was in the schedule about 3 sessions before. And Peter asked for your input in that conversation. The issue was basically the fact that we have cars parking in the Tenafly parking lots the entire day, taking the spots of people that really want to shop,
well, ignoring the order, the
ignoring
regulations.
anything, and there was no actions taken by the police or something to check people in the parking lots. And
I bet you that's wrong, I bet you, I would have.
so
the data for
we
you.
would like it, because what I'm trying to propose is specifically issues with the Tenafly parking lots where we need to make sure that there are 2 hours parking is enforced.
Mhm.
And also in the town hall parking lot over here, where,
Behind you?
right here behind us,
That's a lot
where
of
is,
library and
yeah,
teen
just bear
center.
with me for a second, where is no rule whatsoever, and people are parking here and commute to New York, and we need to find a way to do the same thing. So I'm gonna bring it up in the meeting but we'll need your input on this.
Coming attractions.
What about
Can I ask
skateboards?
one totally different question
Skateboard enforcement.
while I have you? Is there still a plan to close the area around Angelique? Is that just a dead?
No,
that
it's
never
not, I
happened?
apologize. There's some, we have to,
Okay.
we have to,
Can
we
we add
have
that
to
to
do the
the
field, we have
list?
some new council people, so we have to do the field trip to go there. I have not forgotten about it.
Okay.
Let's do
It's a major
While you're here,
Change.
lift.
our next
Yeah.
item on the agenda, yes, is restricted areas for skateboards. So,
And skateboard,
what?
scooters,
And obviously it's gonna
rollerblades.
have to be enforced if we're gonna pass something.
for getting the car towed.
Since I'm the one who's basically proposed this on behalf of HPC, part of the concern is that a lot of the monuments are being ruined. If nothing else, one of the things that it would enable us to do is put up signs saying that there is this ordinance as a deterrence, which we cannot do at this point. So while I grant you enforcement may be a difficult issue, the deterrence factor is there. And quite honestly, if there are some small fines, in the long run, it's a lot cheaper for every taxpayer than to redo Oresco, Peace Plaza,
I think you-
the
very
monument.
well spoken, I think.
Will be hundreds
So-
of thousands of dollars.
I
in
think
there.
Jeff put it in perfect language. So we want so we want the ability to put up signage saying, there's an ordinance prohibiting you from skateboarding in Oresco Park, Roosevelt Commons, and Peace Plaza. So where are we on the other particular locations?
Right, so
We have a little list.
this is a list that
It's
I'm
in a-
happy to pare down. I mean, it's better to be expansive in the list and then cut it down, I think, than to sit there and later kick ourselves for leaving something out.
I would like to take three of them out.
Which three?
Don't kill me. Okay, so I would like to take out Davis Johnson Park, because I know that kids ride their bikes on the blacktop there. If you wanna do more specific areas of Davis Johnson, maybe farther in where it's not obvious, but there is a blacktop area in Davis Johnson Park that,
Keep in mind that this does not say anything about bikes. And there's a difference
No, I
between
mean
bikes.
scooters, so we're on
But there's a
scooters.
difference between bikes and scooters and skateboards. Scooters and skateboards are abrasive to surfaces.
so assume I'm on a scooter.
A
I
bike,
still,
you could ride a bike down the driveway of Davis Johnson Park, no problem at all, as long as you don't fall off it.
so
But
we do scootering in Davis Johnson blacktop.
Get 'em a bike.
Not so easy.
Where
But,
is that black?
so as you come down Angle towards the higher end of Davis Johnson, there's an area where you could pull in and actually
it's a
park.
parking
Well,
lot.
it's a
And people
parking
come in
Yeah.
with their, they bike right through there. My kids do
Yeah.
scooters through there. I don't know if anyone actually roller skates anymore, but I don't want to restrict the blacktop area because I do think that, like I said, people drive or ride bikes to Englewood areas, and so that's a good pause.
Well, this doesn't mention bikes, but once again, you have to, if you want to deter,
I'm thinking
things-
scooters.
you have to have a border. And if you tell people, well, you can use rollerblades or skateboards on half of Davis Johnson Park, you're threatening the other half. Really, that's the reality of it. We're doing the right thing with Roosevelt Commons, because not only, because we're putting a boundary around the monument, just like we put a boundary around the municipal field. And that does more than any signage. You put a fence around something, but I believe where Oresco, I look at this list, and I don't
Wait,
see.
I wasn't done with my list though.
Okay.
Before you go to your list. So I feel that I would still leave Davis Johnson off. The nature center, same thing. I know a lot of kids, we personally ride our bikes and scooters, so we're around the corner from the nature center. So we go up, there's bike parking up there in the lot, you can leave your bikes on the side. Obviously, we're not
I
going through the
agree with you on
trails.
that,
But to me,
100%.
you want people to not actually use their cars to go to the nature center. I feel
No,
like
I
that's a
agree with
green
you
initiative.
100% on that.
And the third one,
I'm sure, the nature center does not allow bikes in it. They have a
you
bike.
can park in the lot
Yeah,
there
well,
and then walk.
nobody's suggesting they can't ride their bike to the nature center. They're suggesting here that you can't ride it through, which the nature center has
You
rules
can't do
against it anyway.
Right, you can't do it anyway. Right. I just
And
didn't
the
know if
same
you were-
with Davis Johnson Park. If people were to pull into the parking lot, nobody's gonna say anything. Once they start going down the hill,
Mhm.
past all of the landscaping, that, I think, is beyond what we want them to do.
I mean, so the entire list then, what we need to actually make very clear is that you may ride to this area but not on the area, because I don't find that clear in this ordinance. I think the
Well,
language is too vague.
this isn't even a rough draft, this is
Fine,
just a
but
list.
it's just vague.
So who would be doing this ordinance? You, Bill, you
Yeah,
write
I'll
the
do it,
ordinance?
yeah.
So just, I think she has a good
So
point.
that's it.
We're not suggesting people can't ride to these places, but they can't ride to them. Dan?
So, all your excuses are, I'm gonna blame your age. I used to skate a lot in
My
town,
age.
bike,
Oh,
everywhere.
then you're getting into.
Yeah, don't
Dan's
pull-
the reason you're writing the ordinance,
No.
Don't
Jeff.
pull the age thing, Dan,
Oh,
you're
man.
outnumbered here.
You're not that young.
This is why I'm
Not
part of the
really.
reason why Jeff wants this ordinance. This is what kids used to do. You would wax up a curb
Yeah, I
and
mean,
jump on it and
Right.
slide on it.
my kids take their scooters everywhere.
Your kids aren't doing that.
No.
This is not
They're
the
not
bad.
talented like that to
They
do
will
this.
be
They're not playing tackle.
soon. This is what the purpose of the ordinance is, to keep them off of
Then
expensive,
only do skate,
granite.
and only do skateboards.
every,
Take
all
out
of,
scooters.
all of them
Not
get,
just
I'll look up
limestone.
everything.
Yeah.
Take out
Limestone
scooters.
is what gets ruined.
We
Then
So
make
would,
it,
take
then
out
make it a
scooters because
skateboarding
their kids
ordinance.
use
before
Make
Peace
it-
Plaza was Peace Plaza,
Scooters are just skateboards with
destroyed
handles.
it. Scooters can
Right.
do this too.
He's the
Right?
reason for the
But I'm
ordinance.
saying.
He's the reason for my
she wants
non-smoking
to take out
ordinance.
scooters
There you
because
go.
she uses scooters.
Look at the angst you're causing amongst the council.
You
Um,
coming up here?
Jeff, what do you think of just making skateboards?
Nope, cause I'm about to show you scooters can do
Should
the
show
same exact
scooters. Gotta
thing.
include scooters.
Once it's
Yeah,
out.
The
that's
issue
more
probably is gonna
ways
be,
than scooters
we
than
we
have.
can list this one and also say
Scooters
the
are
areas
same.
will be marked by
And
specific
the
signs.
one-
And it said no
It's protected
skateboarding
property,
or
not
something like that.
Roller skates.
No skateboarding, roller skates or scooters, and you put a sign, and that's it. Because you're not gonna list on the sign all those areas. Each area is gonna have a sign, no roller skates, scooters, or
So now,
rollerblades.
let's talk
Only
enforcement
ask you.
violation. Enforcement of a violation.
Well, Bill's looked at some of them.
Yeah, I looked
Bill,
at
I
some.
don't wanna take my kids' bikes and scooters in town. I really. think
Nobody's
that's
No,
wrong.
taking
no, not
anybody's
Well, he showed
bikes.
me some when
Nobody's
they did.
taking any bikes or
Oh,
scooters away.
no,
He showed me
no,
some.
what Lauren's talking about is the Rutherford ordinance confiscates if the kid uses it or he's not supposed to, the police confiscate it for 30 days. And,
Well,
Right, and can we,
Never mind, do that.
but,
and what's gonna be the penalty? We have to put it
Yeah,
in the
that's what,
ordinance.
that's
But-
what we need to discuss.
What's
but
the penalty?
here's my point, hold it. So we have to get the areas down.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have a sign there that says it. Is it our intention that it's never going to actually be enforced, the sign's just gonna be the deterrent? Because
No.
someone has to say something, if a kid is violating it,
Without a doubt.
you know.
And that would be between us and code enforcement.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
but what?
because I was gonna say that, really, code enforcement, if we put it in the right spot, code enforcement can enforce it, not police.
So both.
Both,
They're not around
What I was,
Yeah.
both. But what's gonna be the penalty?
yeah, what
Yeah.
I was gonna
Go
say
ahead, Jeff.
is that, you know, HPC, again, that's really part of the driving factor in the Lamont. They're looking to put up cameras, surveillance cameras in some of these places. So if there
Okay.
is damage done to a monument, hopefully, there would be a way to identify who did it. And this damage can be pretty significant. And the other way to do it is to, and I just think it's a harder ordinance, that's why I went this way, is to have an ordinance saying anybody who damages historic or other landmarks in Tenafly, regardless of how they do
Is in
it,
violation of.
is in violation.
Well, all
But
I
I
know is
imagine there may be state
My
laws
kid,
that protect.
my kid may skateboard across Teddy Roosevelt's nose, but he's not gonna damage it.
That's right, exactly.
So, you know, the long and the short of it is, I like the idea of a $25 fine. First of all, if you go to
Absolutely.
court, sometimes the judge waives the fine. You know, you always have the judge's discretion.
Yeah.
Bob, you have something in
Are we
mind?
finding the
I
parents or
have
the
Peter.
kids?
Huh?
Peter. So, oh, I'm sorry, Bob first.
Mark
No,
is,
then I'll have my opinion.
Marcus.
Am I going?
Yeah, I guess.
So in the previous conversation, if somebody gets a DWI or doesn't do their car registration, we were trying to limit the exposure of the fines they have to pay for breaking the law. And here, for kids riding skateboards and bikes, we want to start fining them. It's just, there's no way I'm gonna agree to fining the residents because their child is skateboarding somewhere.
I'm not suggesting we fine the residents.
But
But
that's,
you
that's
have
what
an
we're talking
ordinance,
about.
you have to have a consequence. It doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna fine them. But if you say, don't do that, no, and the kid's looking at you, well, why
Says
can't
for
I?
you.
Well,
Well, I'm all
you
for
could be
putting-
fined.
I'm all
It
for
doesn't
putting-
necessarily mean we're gonna fine people.
I'm all for putting signs up, I think that makes a lot of sense. And if the Roosevelt Monument, by the way, is really the issue here.
It's not the only one.
Oh,
Okay, so
Peace
that-
Plaza.
Right, we should focus on how do we protect Roosevelt Monument, and I really do, it's a little bit cynical in me in terms of, Chief, how are either the police or the code enforcement folks gonna ever be able to enforce this for a practical matter?
It's gonna be challenging.
It's gonna be
I
with
think
the staff we have now.
Jeff summed it up very well. He says, this is a deterrent, it's not a cure-all. And you can't put up a sign saying it's against the law to skateboard here unless we have a law saying you can't skateboard here. And if we have a law and we say it's against the law, we'll put a
Here's the
$25
penalty.
fine, and
Yeah,
it's not necessarily intending to fine your
Even $15.
kids'
whatever.
parents.
So, can I make a suggestion? I would like to do, real small fine for just, you're violating the sign, but I have to say, if there's real evidence of damage, I'd put a fine on there. I'd
Well,
put
why don't,
$100.
you could put $25 or
For
the cost
violating
of repairing damage
But let me
done.
ask you also too, if there's damage to property,
Mhm.
we sometimes will charge criminal mischief. I mean, that's an offense.
That's
You
a
don't have
separate
to
issue,
have that
yeah.
as an ordinance.
But then we
agree.
can't get the money for the municipality to fix it, so that goes,
Well, you,
that's different.
parts of it, you have to share it with.
Bob have an idea, I'm not sure what it is.
If you have walls and curbing or areas, masonry areas that you don't want anybody to, if you have areas that you don't want skateboarders on, walls, or, I couldn't do it on a historic monument. They have devices that are used that prevent you from, what is it called, Dan?
Grinding.
Thank you, grinding on the wall. It's a device that's attached to the corner of the wall, which it produces an impediment. So they
Like
can't
a
go
shunt?
down other than a few feet and then it stops. So they won't come back to grind on the wall.
They'll find a way.
Yeah,
They will.
Dan's
It's a
our poster
deterrent.
It's the
and-
culture.
Folks,
That's there 24/7.
unfortunately,
find a
I
way.
think this is a typical way we deal with things. We're going around in circles, we're gonna spend a half hour on this and end up with the same thing we started with. We all decided we wanted an ordinance prohibiting all of these things from these parts. We started this discussion by, there's about 10 items here. I don't see any of them that should be eliminated. Nobody's gonna be fined for riding a bike or skateboard up to the nature center or up to the parking lot in Davis Johnson Park. But signage in Davis Johnson Park should include that there's an ordinance against these things, and everywhere else, I don't understand
The
why we
only
have
issue
to
is that
teach
we
us to
have to
death.
define the penalty. We have to define the penalty.
Make it $25. That's fine. Make it $25. That's not too much money.
Mark,
The worst thing is
Mark,
have the
it
parent have
makes
to
you feel any
come.
better, Mark? Usually with these things, these nominal things, usually it's a tool that we say, you can't do it, the sign says move along. And there is no fine.
Yeah.
The only people that get a fine are the ones that go, oh yeah, and they do this. Okay, I got something for you.
Right.
But
So you have to teach your kids, you can skate as much as you want, but don't do
So,
that.
Just say
the
yes. sir.
locations,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
25,
Thank
is
you,
everybody
Chief.
according?
Thank you.
I'm gonna write this so I can.
It's okay,
Right there.
yeah.
Yes,
there.
yes.
We have
Always-
consensus, Peter, on the
So we
25.
have a list
Yeah.
of places in consensus.
Yes.
We
Okay,
can move
so.
on.
And-
all of
And we'll
these.
do the same thing that the police tell the kid with the skateboard. Let's move on.
Okay.
Administrators report?
Yes, we'll be pretty quick. This year with the budget, initially, the state wanted us to move it fast. They still have technical difficulties, so for introduction and adoption, we are using the paper forms. And
Really?
yes,
After all
Well, after all that, that's what happens when you deal with the state. The other issue is we are self-examined, which means we don't have to wait for the state to review, and we're biting our nails the night before the council meeting to make sure we could adopt, so that's on our side.
Congratulations.
We're missing an event, Lizette. I just wanna put, on May 15th, we have the Tenafly welcoming event at the firehouse.
Okay,
For the
the
new residents.
yeah, the events that come to the media and events committee.
That doesn't,
No, it's the welcoming committee.
got it.
So, financial disclosure statements, April 30th is the deadline.
Has
and-
everybody at Alini at this table?
Nobody.
I did mine today.
Oh,
everybody.
all right.
I did not.
I didn't know it yet.
So
I
this
totally
is,
easy.
not.
this is just a verbal warning
It's not the
before
same
the
thing
verbal
on
lashing.
Do me a
Totally
favor,
forgot.
Adeline, can
my
you please
county
send
one
us
count?
The link?
Yeah, yeah, I saw your file. I
Can you
checked this
harass
out.
me?
County one's
I'm
fine,
gonna ask
right?
you to harass me.
Whatever you're synced up with, it will trickle down.
So can you send us the
harass
link
me?
again, please?
Well, I did mine
Me too.
tonight, so
Okay.
you'll see
Yeah.
mine tomorrow.
Well, if you
Okay.
open the attachment, the link is within the attachment.
Oh, okay, all right, I should open
Harass
out
me
the
if you don't see
attachment.
it. I have no memory for these things.
All right.
There's
It's
a
at the
little
bottom of the
calendar
second
thing
page.
that I
All right,
included
now I
to
have
add
to
to
open the
your phones.
attachment, that's it.
I didn't
DOT.
have it.
And the DOT, we applied for the grant for, various roads, and DOT award is $212,000 that will
Yeah, this is-
apply to the $625 expenditure that once we complete the project and submit all the paperwork to the DOT and receive that funding goes to pay down the debt.
Good.
That's fantastic.
So the Mayor's Road can be fixed.
That it?
That's it.
Let's go to correspondence. We have another letter from a couple that goes to the senior center.
Okay, the campaign goes on.
Any applicants for the job?
Maybe that's
That's
the
enclosed.
Enclosed.
Close.
And we also have a letter from the Borough of Maywood.
I love this one, by the way, I just wanna say that. Against the robocalls.
I mean, it's a great idea. What do you guys, anybody have a problem with that?
No, there
Fully
is something
support.
to be said. This has to be modified. The robocalls can be done for legitimate, like political action committees.
No,
And then you,
for public
It's for public
utilities.
This is for public
Public
utilities.
Public utilities.
yeah. This is
This is geared towards telemarketers.
yeah, but that's exactly has to
Yeah,
be said.
Max is
Public
right.
utilities it means that it's to the
It's only
telephone.
the mechanism.
But you have to separate the commercial robocalls versus political action
Well,
committees.
even with the federal do not call list, the political phone calls are exempt from that
Okay, so
automatically.
that has to be specified. But there is something else. The type of robocall that should be specifically forbidden, and this can be done by the public, are the ones that have the phishing on top, which are special robocalls with phony numbers. They speak about that, and the telephone companies can completely stop that, might not be able to stop the other ones.
Well, this is geared towards neighbor spoofing, which is a number that masks your number.
But should be
And
overall.
even the telephone company, like with my phone, I signed up for a call filter and it snares, it says we blocked this call, we blocked this call, but at 9 o'clock at night, I still get calls from Azerbaijan. I don't know why, but it's still
That's exactly, so that's exactly what I'm saying. All the phishing calls should be spot, and not only the neighborhood ones. All the phishing calls should be basically stopped.
Just a quick question, do public utilities include companies that are, you know, like these gas and electric
Yes.
companies that
Yeah,
that are
all
not-
of them, they are regulated. Public
They're all
utilities are regulated companies. Yeah. And they can all check and know that when it's a phishing call, because the identifier that goes before that is different for the originating. And that's a robocall automatic.
Well, it identifies in the second whereas clauses all the fake promises to buy products
Yeah.
that claim to be the IRS, that offer free grants, lotteries, you know, so-and-so in another country who died and has no heirs and picked you for something else.
What I'm saying, if we adopt something, we'll have to be a bit more precise. Because
You know what, I don't think it's worth the effort.
why?
Because you're making a big deal out of, because you're concerned about political robocalls.
Yeah,
It's not gonna, I think what I heard Lisette say, that this does not impact political robocalls.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
What did you say?
I didn't say that that doesn't impact.
No, she said it, Lisette said it.
But this resolution does not specifically,
What she's saying is it doesn't have to specifically,
No.
it's not, that,
Do not
that type
call
of
this-
call.
no, there is no federal rule that basically, manages the robocalls. What there is a federal rule is manages the do not call list, and that basically accepts the political call, stuff like that. This is a ordinance basically with rules that are non-state, non-federal regulation.
Okay, so let's just not do it.
No,
No,
but you
no,
can
it's
do it in the right way. People, what's the
What-
problem?
What's the change, what change do you want?
I want to make sure that the robocalls are specific.
And how do you
the-
want to do that?
By modifying the resolution.
How do you want to modify it? Explain.
Okay, I want to
What
basically
verbiage do you want to put in there?
that political robocalls should be allowed, and only the robocalls that have a phishing index should be stopped.
So,
All right, keep in mind that, because we've been talking all night about what our taxpayers want. I
Yeah.
guarantee you, if you took a poll of residents in town, they'd all say, we don't want political robocalls.
It doesn't matter.
protected
It's a
by the
protection.
government.
It's a.
But then
Political
we can't,
speech is
then it's,
protected
we're
by
not
the
always
government.
interested
But this
in what the
defines-
residents want.
No, we
It's only
are,
when it's
but we
convenient.
cannot
No, no,
break
no,
the
you're not
Constitution.
gonna break the law.
You cannot break the law because you think that people don't want it.
But this defines a robocall as a call by a telemarketer. That's not what the
Right.
political calls are. The political calls are either from a candidate, a campaign,
No.
or a political
Are
action committee.
done by telemarketer. The political candidate goes to a
issues.
telemarketer.
Would you mind,
Who does it?
if we table this, would you mind coming up with a written
I'll be so
change?
glad to do so if you can send it to me in Word.
This came from Maywood as a PDF. I don't
All right,
have the
I'll,
just need to-
version.
we'll have a
the-
conversion.
Max,
I'll
the
have to
only
put it.
thing is to say now,
Oh, you
there,
have it in
be
Word?
it, be it, for-
I believe
be it resolved on the bottom, you could add in the necessary language,
Yeah.
except for those protected speech.
Protected by speech, yeah.
As political and
Yeah.
political in nature.
That's exactly.
And
But
that's
how do they know the
literally-
difference though?
Sorry?
How do they know? the
They don't
difference?
have a phishing, none of the political have a phishing attribute.
I think, because I think they're talking about, and I've seen this where, I'll get a call from a sales telemarketer,
Yeah.
and it'll say, Crestgill, New Jersey,
Yeah.
but they're not calling from Crestgill, they're
No,
calling
exactly.
from like, somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how they do that, but,
I've been getting 6 years
No,
of Jersey
send it
City
to
phone
me.
calls. And
Thank you.
6 years.
So you want to do not
Right.
list?
Yes, of course.
but they're not calling from Jersey City.
What?
I
They
had
call
pain
you.
relief call
Right,
today,
they call
and
you.
I had one
And I
to
pay my
speak
dollar.
to somebody, and I told them the only pain I had was from this call. They hung
Oh,
up.
mechanism to enforce it.
That's right.
Yeah,
Nobody gets
exactly.
paid.
Okay, let's move
But the
on.
telephone companies can stop that.
Let's
Now,
move
this, no,
on.
this is
So we're
new
adding
technology,
it?
which is what this is.
Any questions about the resolutions?
We're not adding it yet.
No. No questions about the resolutions?
I'm in the resolutions.
I have one quick question about the resolution.
There's no-
I just want to make sure
The key word is
that we have
quick.
verified the amount on R19-171. R19-171, that amount is accurate, not a penny over.
Okay. So I need to abstain
Wait,
from.
can we do Jeff first?
Please, it's the same thing.
What is this?
I just want to make sure, that that number is correct and we're not overpaying.
Just so everyone knows, I'm going to be coaching 3rd and 4th grade softball this spring.
Where's the insurance?
I have to recuse myself from R 19-171.
I couldn't resist
Make sure I don't vote on that one. 'Cause it
Thank
makes
you for
me-
pointing that out, Jeff.
I could not resist, so that need to be double checked. Thank you.
Well, actually, I told Jamie not to reimburse me, but she says it's policy.
Lauren, did you have a question about a resolution?
That, what I was saying, I have to be recused from that one.
Yeah.
No, when we do the roll call, you say yes and abstain on 171.
Okay, got it.
All right.
Abstain.
Lauren, we know that you are too.
Thank you.
Don't
So-
spend it all in
so
one
if
place.
anyone wants to watch 3rd and 4th grade softball, please come out and watch.
Okay.
While they wait.
Okay, for the good of the order,
Yeah.
Lauren forming a beautification committee?
Actually, I have a second one. show me
I have
everyone.
one too.
I'd actually like to start with my second one
Can
first
I ask
because-
the council, what's the point of putting these things on the agenda if we're just gonna add them at the last minute?
Well,
Because
sometimes
for the
things
good
come
of the
in.
order specifically made that you can add additional issues to be basically talked by the people at the table. You can do them in advance, or you can do that in the
Lauren,
moment
what are
of.
your two? Let's do the first one
Okay,
first.
so mine are coming in late because Lizette and I were waiting on some ordinances from other boroughs and they can't come in. This was actually brought up last time. This is the ordinance to, for the Board of Health to create escalating fees for violators. So as it stands right now, our code inspector and our health inspector go and they may issue a violation or conditional health grade, but they don't have any real enforcement. They just check it again in a few weeks, which costs us money. We have to hire Ruby to come back again to follow up with that particular business or resident. And she then just can only issue a second violation or a third. She has no ability to issue fees here. So she has requested in the Board of Health that we look into some of the ordinances from other towns, which Lizette printed out for us tonight, which I'm gonna try to pass around. And these are other ordinances in which they've enacted monetary fees, sort of like our property vacancy ordinance where it's escalating. So the first time you show up, it's a nominal amount,
you.
the second time it'll keep going,
All
and
right,
so forth.
For the record,
These are
Lisette, correct me if I'm wrong. For the good of the order normally means that a member of the governing body can introduce something and the council decides whether or not they want to discuss it at a future meeting.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're not going to spend a lot of time discussing this tonight. I think we all agreed that it's a good idea and
put it on the
But
agenda.
So
so before
we'll-
I write it, I need to know how much our discussion is of what kinds of fees we're looking at.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
That would be
fine.
that's
well,
pretty much what the other
we only
things.
spent 45 minutes on one towing fee, so we,
Well, this actually will earn money for the borough and will help keep our residents safer, so.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 5. 1, 2, 3,
I would
5.
actually like to see a initial amount to be higher, because keep in mind, this is at the point where they've gotten a code violation for something in health. So something is not clean, something
You
is
know,
not sanitary.
the
Then
way-
there's, I'm not done. Then they show up again to check it and found it wasn't fixed after a certain period of time. It's at this point now we're looking for fees. So keep in mind, this is a couple weeks of an unsanitary or unhelpful condition in town. So I would actually like to start higher than 100.
These are fees, not penalties. So it's really meant, I guess, to cover the cost to us of the actual inspection,
Of bringing Ruby.
for the reinspection.
for the reinspection, right?
So this is,
Because there could be fines for failure to
I would
to
suggest,
abate the
Looking for
I would
violation.
suggest that this should
I'm
start
looking for fines.
That's
at the Board
different
of
than
Health.
Right, so these are not this.
Lauren.
It did already.
Well, no, but what I'd like to see is the Board of Health come up with recommended fees, not
They-
us.
They don't meet that often, and I have to tell you, Ruby is very interested in getting this enacted, and I agree strongly with her.
Well, when it-
So
we-
instead of dragging our feet on it, I don't see why we as a body can't do this kind
Well,
of
we
thing.
would be way off base to do anything without their approval of it. So
I don't
I-
agree. They actually all voted to go ahead and create an ordinance,
You
and they're looking
can't
to.
create a Board of Health ordinance without the Board of Health.
Well, they are looking for the council to draft an ordinance.
Right,
They can't
and
draft an ordinance.
we draft an ordinance,
haven't drafted one
and
yet.
then give it to them for their
For them to
recommendation.
comment and. But I
So
don't
let's
think-
put this on the agenda for the next work session
That's
to
right.
discuss an ordinance, and, you
It's in
know,
a month from now.
So
if you have a,
Might get on the next meeting.
Our next meeting is Tuesday.
No, the following.
The next meeting after that is May 7th, and then
Why can't I get this
Basically
done
the same
sooner?
thing.
I don't
So-
They
understand.
probably complement each other.
It's just too slow.
It's just the same thing we're gonna do.
I can write this and I can call up Ruby and we can have a full
You
discussion.
cannot call Ruby and have a discussion. Whenever something impacts the Board of Health, council agrees to a draft. So you prepare the draft and then everyone discusses the escalating fee.
When's the
and
next time they meet?
June,
So then
Right,
it goes
June.
then it would go to them to review, and it cannot, they have to meet as a quorum. It cannot be discussed by phone, it cannot be
Mhm.
discussed by email, because it's in violation of OPMA. It has to be discussed at an actual meeting.
So this was discussed,
Process is the
and to
process.
wait again another 3 months to pass?
Process
Yes.
is the process.
The concept was discussed, the idea was
Hold a
discussed,
special meeting.
but we would need for something to be formulated and concrete and presented to them.
Can you get me a date for a special meeting?
That, the secretary would have to poll the members to see if she has a quorum.
You're not gonna have much luck getting a special meeting.
We'll see, because I
You
think
could
people
try,
are
but
very interested in this.
They have a very difficult time, half the time getting a quorum for their regular meetings.
Okay.
So when will it be ready to present to
Hey, Adam, you wanna do me a favor?
council? Would it be
Well, I
for the
gotta run it
next?
by Bill.
Well,
And check
what's wrong with
the sheet
these? These
Board
look
of
pretty
Health
good to me.
their scheduled meetings.
Those
see
are
what
good.
next one is.
I thought the
Yeah.
language in this was
Opposite the
good,
exception
I
to
just
that.
wanted to discuss, the only thing I would discuss was the fee amount, and then I figured between the two of us, we would get some language that's state-specific.
Yeah, or it'd be too much.
Right.
You just have to
It's a
pick
very
whatever
simple
our
ordinance,
code.
and that's why I was asking
Yeah.
tonight for a discussion of what you guys think would be the correct fee to implement.
Well, but the truth of the matter is, that's not the purpose of, for the good of the order. Okay? We
So-
could end up spending
Yes.
hours for the good of the order,
But this
because
is our work session, Mayor, and to me, this is work.
When the idea is presented on the, for the good of the order, then the Tenafly version will be discussed in greater detail next week under to be considered. And if everyone is in agreement with that version, then I will let Valerie know if she could poll the members, if they could have a special 10-minute, 15-minute meeting to review it and give their comment.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll just make sure, we'll make it conform to the right section of our code.
Right.
And, you know, whatever the fees are, they would just be filling in the blanks, basically.
Mark, did you want to add something?
I just had
Huh?
I had a question, because we're discussing it with without a lot of background information. Are there fines currently for different issues, like refrigeration fines and freezer
That-
fines?
I think that falls under state statute, because
Yeah.
whenever Ruby issues something, she quotes a section under the state.
So does the borough receive the
No.
revenue from
No.
fine?
No.
That goes to the state?
Yes.
That,
Yeah,
Split,
Just a
is it
big
split
burden
somehow?
inspection.
Goes to the county, right?
Goes to the county
Well, Susan,
inspector
You
for
get a
that.
Do we collect any money from Board of Health violations? Does any money go into our treasury?
I'm not sure, I'm gonna have to look at the.
I don't recall in the budget under revenue,
No.
a section for this, and it's not under miscellaneous revenue, because that lists all that. And Bill, if there's state
There's something-
statutes that create fines, would that supersede any ordinance, or we can do it in addition?
No, that's why I said to, saying to Lauren that these are
Those are to show
inspection fees, right? They're not fines.
Okay.
The fines are different. And when there's a fine, you get it, when there's a summons issued, doesn't it, it's not heard by the municipal court? It is, right?
Yeah.
But the money doesn't go to us, I guess.
No.
I don't
So
know
this-
what it
this
goes.
it
would help
depends what the
reimburse.
charge is,
No,
but
this is a very good idea. Re-inspection fees.
Right.
Good.
For those who are not
Good idea.
complying with fixing the issue.
What's your other item?
Is the beautification committee, which has been floating around our agendas for a year now. This is actually Shalma's idea that I would like to follow through on. I'd like the DPW to work with the master gardener to create a beautification aspect to that committee.
So, this is actually a very good idea.
I
So,
think so too.
the thing you just said there, so this is like part of the whole DPW committee thing?
I'd like to move it under that heading.
So not a whole separate committee, just have the
Correct.
DPW committee handle
We're meeting
beautification
next week.
issues?
Yes.
Okay. That
I
makes
don't
sense.
need a whole new committee.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think there's a master gardener there. I think we're underutilizing the wonderful resources we have, and the DPW
Can
committee.
you do me a favor?
Yes,
This will make it fast and easy.
yeah.
Just send me a very, very quick what you want added to the agenda. We're meeting next week. I will add it
Okay.
as you want it discussed, will be added to the agenda. Doesn't have to be in long detail, just please add the following to DPW consideration.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay?
And I know when Shama returns, I know she has a lot of input on this.
That's fine.
Okay.
It won't be a one and done.
Obviously, I hope it's an ongoing.
No beautifications forever.
It should be.
For you and
it
me,
is, I
never.
just wanna know it, I hope you have noticed that the municipal green, the areas in downtown, our parks committee is, our parks department has been working nonstop. Every day you see them and Bob has given them direction and in the budget, we're getting them updated equipment. So internally, it has been happening.
I would tell you, I was up at Davis Johnson Park today,
Good.
and it's cleaned up very nicely. I'm gonna talk about it in a second. And also Froggy Park, I've noticed, looks very nice. Yeah, I mean, we suffer from a lack of shade because of the trees that we lost, through nobody's fault.
Yeah.
But the park
For
is,
7 years.
the park is packed. So,
When are we gonna plant the trees?
Max, did you have anything
Yeah,
for the good of the
Pictures
order?
from this weekend, right?
Is anybody else? Okay, so, we all know what happened with the garbage contract last time when we meet. We met, basically, what I'm trying to say, we should have a contract management whereby all the contracts should be listed, and automatically 9 months before the end of the contract, we will be notified and start the procedures to start renewing the contract, so we have time to put out an RFP, to
software,
review the
contract
RFP,
management
the
software.
software management, to review the RFP, to
Okay,
basically.
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
What's that?
what's gonna be-
Well, we'd have to look into what companies offer contract management.
exactly, and please come back next meeting, and we have to put a professional management in place in town, not like it used to be before. Okay.
Well, like our garbage contract, our traffic lighting.
Everything, all the contracts, we have to have a list of all the contracts, terminations, and a trigger that is gonna tell, now it's time to go to do it, including the labor contracts, including all the contracts, basically.
You know, your GIS modules might actually have something like that,
Yeah.
so that we
We'll
may be
check
able to
with
just,
them.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
What?
since we're setting the trend here, I have one thing for the good of the order also.
Oh, Peter,
And
you can't do that.
And it's good, because
Should we yell at you a
I
little
think
bit?
it's really good news. Bob and I met with a rose expert today. I would say that he's one of the top 2 in the country. And the good news is, he actually worked on our rose garden about 20 years ago, when it was one of the top gardens in the country. And he basically, along with a lot of other people, walked away because they weren't getting the support they needed. So we suggested to him, and he agreed, that he's going to present us, Bob and I, a plan, a proposal as to how he thinks he can bring it back. He's offered to provide these services, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's gonna charge us at all for his labor.
Well,
For his design.
Huh?
No cost for the design.
He's we'll have to pay for the flowers.
of course.
We have $100,000 in the Davis Johnson Trust, which is to go to something like this.
Exactly.
The price off the top of his head was to put up to 200 rose plants in the garden at about $80 a head, which Bob says, I don't know the first thing about roses, is a reasonable price. That would come to about $16,000.
Good. It's a medium-sized
But-
rose bush, it's good.
But what he's
Good.
going to do is a proposal which shows all of the support that this garden will need over the course of a year. When we get this proposal, we'll sit down with our Parks Department and our garden club and figure out who's gonna do this and who's gonna do that. And we'll oversee it to make sure that it gets done. And I really feel we have an opportunity to really jumpstart this garden and get it back to where it was before. This guy is really, really good. He came recommended by the Master Gardener group of Bergen County. And it just so happens he's out of Richfield Park. Dan and then Lauren?
I think this is a good time because the current garden club is more active than ever. They're actually very active in the community garden, so this is something they've wanted for a long time via the green team. So, I mean, Carol Hodges has been on top of this.
Well, I
forever.
did meet with the garden club at their last meeting. They were very supportive of this idea. So, Lauren, please.
I want to say thank you. I love this idea. I've been asking, to redo Davis Johnson for part of the beautification, and I think this would be a wonderful addition, actually, to the DPW meeting that's coming up. If, this can be incorporated and bring maybe Garden Club to either speak or be part of this as the beautification gets folded under that committee.
Well, let's wait to see the proposal and make sure it's doable. All right?
Yeah, that seems like a very reasonable,
Yeah.
I plant roses, there's a lot on my property. That seems a very reasonable amount.
Depends on
The species.
So if there's no further ado, I'll entertain a motion to close the work session.
Can I, wait, I'm sorry, just this is a quick question. And I think we did discuss it before, and I can't remember where we're at on it, the bee guy.
But Bill, do you
There
have a
was an
contract?
ordinance?
there
What do
was-
we sent
There
We
was an
contracted
ordinance,
it.
but I
No, we
know there
didn't.
was an ordinance, but has anyone heard from him?
Yeah, Bill and I have had a dialogue with him, and we got a finished contract yet?
I made the changes that you and I discussed, but I don't actually have any contact information for that
I'll give it
guy.
to you.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
Wait, time out.
Let Adelini speak.
I actually sent the contract to him and I have his contact information.
Okay,
It
good.
was sent to him via regular mail, but we haven't received it.
But
Would you give his contact information to Bill,
yeah, give it
please?
to me, yeah.
When was this?
Last
I,
meeting?
Jeffrey, I believe we're finished. He asked for a
March
couple of
27th.
changes, which were
Because
innocuous.
I know we're at that time of year
Yeah.
that he was talking about, that's why I just want to see where we're
Yeah,
at.
as soon as
Thank
the danger of frost, I think, is gone.
And Lisette, to follow up on that question, so if we get a signed contract, is there any further action that we have to take?
No, we adopted the resolution at the
Right.
last meeting,
Right.
but we don't sign the contract. The contractor has to sign it first and return it to us, and then you would execute it.
Okay, so Jeff, once we get the contract back from him, and we'll find out tomorrow if there's anything holding it up, it's a go.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up. A motion to close the work session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye. Second.
Anybody need a break, or we can go right to the public meeting?
Public meeting.
We need to update closed session.
I was gonna add that, the discussion of, to say a legal matter involving.
Matter regarding,
I'm ready to go.
Okay, in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. The meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the municipal center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dash,
Here.
Councilmember Dayton,
Here.
Councilmember Grossman,
Present.
Councilmember Lennon,
Here.
Councilmember Park,
Here.
Councilmember Zena,
Here.
Mayor Rustin.
Here. Revisions to the agenda?
Yes, we have, well, just adding under closed, a legal matter concerning the borough's, participation in a recreational, program.
Okay, public comment?
Christine Evron, 39 Leroy Street, President of the Chamber of Commerce. On the towing issue, I'd just like to remind everyone that Englewood has lower costs for doing business than we do. And that in the fall, the price of gas was about $2.27 a gallon, it's now up to $2.65. These impact the costs of towing. We should keep these things in mind. I'm glad you chose the higher amount. For the fees for the revisits, I believe you had them at one point and they were retracted to make this a more attractive community for businesses. I know some of this was from years ago, some of the stories that I was told, and maybe we could get a few more specific examples, that business owners were told they had to repaint a shelf and they would be re-inspected a couple days later, and they didn't have time to go and repaint a shelf within that period of time, so a third visit would be coming. That's what I was told the last time this came up, when the fees were eliminated, that it was that kind of thing. There is no business that I am aware of that is intentionally not meeting the regulations. Again, but I'm aware of, but that's when we eliminated the fees, that's the kind of thing that was going on. And, what was the last one? Oh, roses. You might have the garden club reach out to other garden clubs, because the Rose Garden used to have roses that were worth, I was told, thousands and thousands of dollars. We might be able to get cuttings to reestablish roses where people had cuttings, other garden clubs.
The gentleman that was, walked the
That's it.
Rose Garden with us today pointed out, he knew what roses were there, including, there's a name on the Rose Garden, Jack Latimer, is it?
Yes.
He's very famous.
It was named for him, and he had his own rose that was planted there, and this guy knows, he knows his stuff, so.
Good.
They were all lost though, right?
Yeah,
No, there's some there.
There's
Oh,
root, there's
and-
root
and-
systems there.
You know, Christine brought up a very interesting point, and that is unintended consequences of our actions. You know, we start fining people, and I'm not suggesting that these people don't deserve to be fined, but, you know, it does make for a less friendly atmosphere for businesses. A business owner does not look at it as, you know, protecting the public, they look at it as, you know, beating them to death, and, you know, we're very careful about not wanting to beat our residents to death, but at the same time, we don't want vacant stores. And we like all our things. It's a balancing act, and I think what you're looking to do is right, correct, but we just have to be very careful, that's all. Yes?
Just to respond to the comment, what I've seen so far in the Board of Health reports, this is, the health inspector comes the first time, if they have a violation, the health inspector comes the second time, a couple weeks, a week or two later, depending on the violation, and checks that it was fixed. We're not talking about painting a shelf, we're talking about pests, vermin, filth, sickness, mold, we are talking about refrigeration issues, food handling, safety. These are not small violations that our health inspector is coming back for. These are the big things. She usually, you know, is very lenient, I think, with our local businesses about that first violation. I trust that if she has to come back, it's for a serious thing, and we pay for her to come back.
Well, it's her time, we pay
Right.
for her time.
That's right.
And I will say this, is, how long has Ruby been with us?
I would say, about 5.
I would
Or
tell
just
you
'cause
that
we had
I
Martha.
never had a complaint about
Right.
Ruby,
She's very
her
conservative.
demeanor or her actions, so, and that says something, because that's not an easy job.
And I have to say, those violations are very rare, they really
Mhm.
are, but when they are, they should be handled.
Any other public comment? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A second,
Second.
please call the roll.
I think, isn't Lauren
I have to
She's
abstain.
abstaining from something?
Well, when when it's her time to vote, she can abstain.
Councilmember Batch,
Yes,
Councilmember Dayton,
I need to abstain from R 19-171, but then yes on everything else.
give me just a moment. Got it. Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Sena.
Yes.
And I skipped over this on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes. February 19th, the regular session, the work session. February 26th, the work and regular session. And March 12th, the work and regular session. A motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's go to the public hearings. Adeline, please?
The following ordinances published herewith was first read by title only on March 26, 2019, and posted on the bulletin board of the lobby of the municipal center. Ordinance number 19-06, an ordinance amending chapter 2, section 2-45.8 of the revised general ordinances of the borough of Tenafly, entitled Off-Duty Employment, and more particularly amending section 2-45.8K entitled Use of Police Vehicle. The next ordinance is number 19-07, which is an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of block 715, lot 11, commonly known as 11 Serpentine Road in the borough of Tenafly.
Public comment on either of these ordinances?
we are not part of the public, yeah.
All right, Vanu, would you want to read them, make the motion?
I move to pass and adopt on second and final reading ordinances 19-06 and 19-07, and that notice of same shall be published according to this law.
Thank you. A second? Please call the roll.
We have a comment over here, I guess this is the time to comment on the.
Sure.
Okay, I have received many emails regarding the acquisition of the properties, and one of them was specifically the fact that we have paid to $495, I guess, and the assessed value, according to the email that I received, was $370,000 versus the $495. I didn't have that numbers. Do you have those numbers? How much was the assessed value versus how much we paid?
It was 460, wasn't
The assessed value?
Yes, we had an assessed value.
The
before.
appraisal, no.
Appraised value, I'm sorry.
But you're using,
Appraised.
but
I always the
you
wrong
use the
number.
term assessed value,
Yeah.
because that's the number you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the appraised value.
Okay, let's talk about both, so let's have
Appraised
the
would-
meeting in basically, people should know both the numbers before we,
The assessed value is what's on the tax rolls.
yeah, so the
And
appraised value.
The appraised value that we got was 465. I don't have it in front of me. It was 465, I think. But that had been done a little, some time ago. And I did speak with our appraiser, and we did discuss this about the number. And he said probably the value went up since I did that appraisal, because that was done, I think, about 2 years ago. When I had run that number by him, he said it's a fair number. You're in the ballpark at the 495. So keep in mind that the 360 whatever it is, 365 or whatever the assessed value is. That was what she purchased it for, and she made improvements to it since. And you have to understand the way ratios work, the common level
I
ratio
understand,
works.
so basically, I want the record to show that basically the appraised value is very close to what we paid,
Yes.
and we
Correct.
are pretty much closing to,
Right.
okay.
We also checked with our co-attorney to make sure it's okay.
If there was any issue of paying a little bit more than the actual appraised value. And the cost that we would have incurred if we had to go through a condemnation proceeding added to the value of the property, it would have cost us more money in the end.
Thank you.
Okay,
Council-
call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bash,
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Brennan,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Izan.
Yes.
Committee reports. Max, you have anything?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Manu?
Yes, I have a couple of things. The Board of Adjustments met on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And there were 3 items on the agenda. One was an appeal, the appeal that came up in the prior meeting for 292 Engle Street. Both the parties returned to the board meeting on April 1st, and it was revealed that proper notice was not given for the second meeting. So the appellant requested the courtesy of allowing him to give notice for the following meeting. The attorney for the other party, Madeo, was unwilling to allow this courtesy, and his argument was that he was supposed to have notice for the March meeting, and he gave him the courtesy of giving him time until this meeting. Well, anyway, having heard the argument, the motion to dismiss was raised and approved, so it was dismissed. There were two new business. One, they came in for a far and front yard setback variance. The homeowners were interested in a second floor addition, which added 600 square feet to the FAR. The request was withdrawn, and so that they could take into consideration a number of comments from the board. So they're rescheduled to come back next month. And then 40 Browning Avenue was for the installation of an in-ground swimming pool requiring an impervious coverage variance. There was something interesting in this, that the house was constructed in 2006, and under the land use regulations at the time, the property and the home were conforming. Changes in the laws since then caused impervious coverage to be out of variance, and so anyway, ultimately the board felt that the addition of the pool would have been too much for the impervious, and they turned down the pool. So that was Board of Adjustments. The Tenafly Hill Swim Club met, and I don't know if we want to say too much, if there's anything that we need to speak later on. But basically, a couple of small items. The pool manager is talking about setting up a league between our pool club and a couple of the local pool clubs, and it seems like that may be happening, so, to that extent.
Is that different from what they've done in the past? Because in the past, they've always had a swim team that competed against other towns.
Right, so I think this is similar,
Pretty much the same.
but it's creation of an actual league, I think. And then membership has been coming in, and you know, it's at this point higher than it was last year at this time, but you know, they don't know what'll happen. So we have a couple of things where where our town is putting up their information on our bulletin, you know, the outdoor bulletin board, and we also have an ad going into the Tenafly borough newsletter. So you know,
I haven't received anything.
I think they'll be signing it. What's the deadline on that?
The deadline is Friday, April 26th.
For the next newsletter?
Yes, because my intention is to publish it in around May 20s or so, because it has the polling place changes. I have to do
I
it.
gotta get my concert schedule done.
And then something that came up in another meeting was we were advised by the recreation director that Recce's participants in the summer only used the pool facilities about 7 times last summer. And yeah, you
Do a
know.
couple times a week.
Well, it was, so they said ultimately it was about 7 times.
Combination of a lot of rain and a lot of trips.
Well, also, they said the distance between the middle school and the pool, you know, to get there, it took so long that they didn't want to. So now
That's like a death march.
Yeah. So this year, actually, they're moving Recce's to the high school. And so they expect that they should be able to use the pool a few more times than last year.
Oh, man.
But
Extra money?
but one of their issues was that they were capped at 15, you know, children that could use the pool on any particular day. And they were upset by that because, you know, they have 200-300 kids that can, you know, theoretically go, you know, or whatever.
400.
They can only use 15 kids a day.
2 sets, I thought.
Oh, right, 2 sets of 15.
Of 15.
It's a rolling.
But you know, it's way
By the
inadequate
hour?
for what they require.
So,
So
107 times.
so I think
Took it out, but but I think the old one, I thought said 25.
You can't talk about
Oh, yeah,
this.
yeah.
so anyway, so that was an issue on the recreation side. And then finally, I received a comment that in the last couple of years, one of the board members had several individual discussions with the mayor in which they felt he was not helpful and actually discouraged working with the borough. And it's because of this interaction with the mayor that apparently they felt that we as a governing body would not help them. So this was just a comment.
I don't know where you're going with that, but I have my suspicions.
So, well, that was.
I had heard it got, you know, especially during the negotiations, it got a little more hostile, I think, than they had hoped. Was by
The mayor doesn't
feedback.
recall meeting with anybody by himself, so.
Okay.
That's the problem.
So,
You have anything else?
no, I'm done.
Okay.
All right, so,
But, you know, before you make statements like that at a public meeting, I would appreciate if you discuss them with me, because if there's no factual basis behind it, it's rather inappropriate.
I think it's
Okay.
just relaying, I
It's
don't
just-
think
it
it's
was
not
just
minutes, Dave.
It was just an apparent comment from them.
And I heard the same
Got it.
there.
the Access for All met on March 27th. Part of what was discussed, actually, I have to thank Bob, because they had asked me to reach out to find out what happened to the handicap spots behind CVS, and I guess you reached out to Detective, and those spots have now appeared in a new location, which no good deed goes unpunished. The AFA is a little upset that there were two spots, one near the entrance, one near towards the west side, closer to where the senior center area is. They were both moved to where the senior center area is, and now they say that anybody has to walk twice as far by removal of the one spot.
Well, isn't that in violation, Bob? Aren't the spaces supposed to be the closest spaces to the main entrance?
The one space was existing, and in order to consolidate and give them the proper van access and aisles that we needed, it was moved over to the western portion of the parking lot, which had more room for us to bring the spaces up to code and not eliminate an extra space that was on the east side.
But there's
In
no
order to
part
do
of the
that.
code that says it has to be close to the door?
There's no, that parking lot is in the middle of nowhere, so there's no facility that's close to that parking spot, so, to that parking lot, so it's.
CVS.
Well, yeah, they were
Yeah,
saying
and
that.
and it's close to CVS.
Well, they were saying that
It's closer to CVS.
the elimination of the one spot.
We didn't eliminate, we just
Well, moved
relocated it
it.
right next
All
to
right,
the other.
so where the first spot was on the east side was closer to the entrance to the pharmacy at CVS than the current spot. I told them that there might be a concern because where the spot was located, there is an extra drive-through behind Miller's Bakery, and so it would put somebody who's handicapped
In the drive lane.
in the driveway
Correct.
and going across it, and that might have been an issue. Anyway, they also are going to at some point be honoring JCC on Palisades for their work to help people who need services, disability awareness. The chairperson, Hercules Invictus, has started a podcast segment that is focusing on disability awareness. And those are the major issues from them. Then, let's see, moving on to the next. The HPC met on April 4th, where I will see what I can do to take this down to no size. First of all, they want to thank and to acknowledge that they do have a secretary now. Amanda Booth is the secretary for and administrative assistant for the HPC. They are looking to nominate the Elizabeth K. Stanton House for a county award / recognition. The county gives awards recognition for restorations, and they thought it would also be good that the owners receive a recognition from the borough. And I think that's a good recommendation. They've done a lot to renovate the house, to restore it back very close to the way it apparently originally looked. And so it would be good if we do acknowledge and recognize officially the efforts of the owners. They are going to be doing a spring inspection on the railroad station. They're looking at, in particular at the cupola. They were going to check with the borough to see what, if anything, they need in terms of permission to fly a drone up to the top and take pictures and videotape the cupola close up without anyone having to go up on the roof. They are looking for,
Can't make this stuff up.
yeah, they're looking for having the Roosevelt Commons landscape, not just the memorial, which is already designated as historic, but the landscape itself, because the woman who designed it was one of the first female landscape architects in the country, and they thought the state actually is interested in it. It would be the first of a kind for having a landscape designated.
Jeff, do they have the original plans?
Yes.
It's amazing. I'd
Yeah.
love to see this.
Yeah, the original plans are around, but her goal was not, Collier's goal was not to have it as a permanent landscape. It was supposed to be living, changing as society changes. So she designed it with certain elements, but that it would not stay stagnant. They also are working on giving updates to the planning board on the historic plan element. They've been going through that with a fine-tooth comb. Let's see, those are the main things from them.
Can I ask, did they discuss a district during that discussion?
No.
You finished,
They
Jeff?
have not. No, there's, sorry, there's one more. The, so the subcommittee to look at the rec and teen center programs met on April 5th. And we had Mark Slauson and Jamie Cannon here. And basically, without going through any detail, the meeting was so that both could explain with each other in their presence what they perceive as their programs, what they do, how many people they service. They both communicate that they do talk a lot to each other. It was clear that the nature of the programs are extremely different. But one of the interesting takeaways, besides for what Vinu already said about the 7 times usage, one of the interesting takeaways was that Mark Slauson said that many years ago he had suggested combining the 2 departments, and that he would suggest when he retires that be re-examined again. So
Did he say when,
he did not say
When he retires.
just when he retires.
Don't ask either.
So, yeah, no question though, both do service a lot of kids in that recreation. She had an endless list of programs that she's responsible for. So I've typed them up. I can distribute those. I will distribute it to first the subcommittee, and then if you wish to distribute it to the council for
I'd like to see.
more information, that would be fine. We will be meeting with them again, but I think individually more to give them freedom to talk, because they definitely kept looking at each other a lot as they were talking.
So Jeff, maybe I missed it.
Yes.
Why was this meeting, joint meeting took place?
So it's really what it was a subcommittee that is addressing some of the issues that were raised during the budgetary process and some of the concerns that each one of them raised, and to look at, are there ways to create synergies between the two? And so both were invited to start off by saying, what do they do? We could have started off jointly, we could have started off individually. It's just the way the meeting got set up.
And who started this subcommittee?
It was a joint idea.
Okay. All right, thank you.
That it, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll leave the 125th to you, so that's why I said you can take that. I've done enough.
Okay.
It'll be 126 by the time we get done. Dan, you have anything?
I spared you the HBC. I could have gone on for another hour if you really. We'd
The
get to
whole
the
meeting was a
127.
half,
God bless
the
you.
whole meeting was a half an hour, and you go off for an hour and a half.
Dan, you have anything?
TVAC received the donated Lucas 3, the automatic
came
CPR
in?
machine, yep. The vendor came in, gave TVAC a in-house demonstration and training. It's actually very cool. I think I took a video.
What does it do? Automatic CPR?
Right, so there's times when a volunteer can't
Can't do compressions or?
for a very long time.
Right,
So this,
it's great.
it looks more violent than it is, because it's an adult. It's quite, I guess,
Well, CPR, you typically have strong,
It looks more violent.
yeah, it looks like you're gonna break the rib.
Yeah, it
You
looks-
do.
They do
Yeah.
break the ribs
Yeah.
a lot.
So they trained on that. There's spare parts that came with it. The vendor was very generous. So that they've been trained on. So that'll be in the field. Probably already is in the field. Coming up, this will be in your emails shortly, but Northern Valley Earth Fair, Saturday, April 27th. We are hosting this year. It's a joint effort. It's been around for 5 or
April
6.
27th, right?
Correct. 11 a.m. middle school parking lot. Can't miss it.
What time?
11 a.m. to 4 p.m. The county's bandstand will be there with
Send me that flyer, I'll
it's
post it.
it's gonna be near
Okay.
you.
Lizette, we should put that on our, screen,
Yeah.
televised screen.
And the message board?
Yes, thank you, that's good.
So
It is.
that's
Good,
gonna be
good.
tight, because Little League will just be fishing as that started.
That whole day's spread.
And I will tell you about a street fair in a second.
That day's gonna
You
be
know,
busy.
Is that it, Dan?
Yes.
Lauren,
I
please?
have 7. I'm gonna just start actually with the Northern Valley Earth Fair, because the Northern Valley Committee, the Greenway Committee met, and they have put in a letter of intent to get some grant money, and we are working on engineering right now, and we're moving towards traffic. So that's all good news. Secondly, I just want to make sure everyone knows, and I said this to the Joint Use Committee as well, Pride Day has been moved from June 1st to June 8th, and they are actually looking for sponsorship, so if anyone wants to sponsor anything in Pride Day, they've asked many of the council members want to, I'm just throwing it out there. The Welcoming Committee is having its big new residence event, May 15th. They would like as many council people to come. That would be actually a wonderful opportunity to sell or promote the 125th committee shirts that the mayor made. Mayor, I don't happen to have one right now, but I'll discuss that in a second. So this is for new residents. They want to meet their local officials. They want to meet the mayor. They want to come tour the firehouse. There's an ice cream truck for kids.
This is when, you said May 15th?
May 15th,
So it's a
5
Wednesday
p.m.
night?
at the firehouse. Yes.
5 p.m.
5 p.m. The Joint Use Committee met. We have a new SRO. There is a little bit of a difference here. This year, 4 days of the work week will be a new SRO named Maxwell Werner. And on the 5th day, 2 other officers are gonna rotate. This is Louis Sparadakis, thank you, and Matt Giordano. We appreciate it. They're all getting trained to be an SRO.
This is,
Oh, there we go.
sure.
Thank you, Chief. So,
Isn't it
thank
before
you,
you-
Mayor. We will discuss this in a second at the
Other
120 day. There's an issue with the crossing guards, because apparently they need hearing and vision exams, but our school nurses, which volunteered to do it for free, don't have the correct equipment. So there might be a cost of equipment here to do vision and hearing exams. The chief is getting back on that. We've asked about borrowing, we've asked about using it for HARP service, which is our nursing service, so they're gonna follow up on that.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. In our meetings with the police chief, he was looking at flexibility because not one single person want to do the job.
Right.
Now that he has 3 people, does he still need that flexibility in salary? We need to get back to understand, because we were
That's something for the
specifically.
police commission to iron out the
Okay,
details.
thank you.
Okay. Good news, actually, the police said that we are getting something called a CRG mapping of the schools. And we can do this also in the municipal side, and I think we should. This is a company that will come in, it's a critical response group. They basically make a 3D walking way so that anyone who comes in an emergency situation, so let's say something happens within municipal hall, you know, the state or the Bergen County comes, they don't know our buildings.
County SWAT.
It's a virtual map.
It's a virtual
It's a
map,
map
and
that
it
runs
also
onto your
shows you.
phone with the nicknames
Yes.
of all the rooms.
Yes, so, you know, if we say Wilson Room, they'll know exactly how to get here, the shortest path, the best way, they can know there's windows
the
here.
pit.
So this is
So they
emergency,
load
so they're
up, it says
doing,
the pit.
yes, so they're doing this in the schools. We can ask to extend this to municipal buildings, I highly recommend it. I think it's a great safety thing for emergency response. We discussed the firework contract, and the mayor assured them that we have asked for increased levels of inspection post-fireworks on the fields, and we're going to light it up better with our DPW and make sure that there's no loose shells. And then the last thing was brought up was the Smith School property the school has been flooding, And so there was a discussion whether the water runoff, and Bob Colbert actually was part of this discussion, the water runoff would affect the properties on Downey or downstream from there that have the brook either bordering or on their property.
Decided the water will run uphill.
So we were told the same volume of water was going to the brook, it was just getting moved and rerouted. So I know we have a Downey resident here, and you are welcome to follow up with our DPW.
It's rerouted through the street.
Right, to Jeff's backyard.
My house will flood.
Jeff's house is gonna flood,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, bottom line, I was told years ago when they did the sidewalks, it would have no impact, even though it's impervious coverage, and it's been far worse in the area. So, I am skeptical about any reports that do not have any substantiation or hardcore data, because it is worse, and I have neighbors who have complained to me about how much worse it is.
So are there any plans to alleviate it?
School has drawn up their plans.
So the school has the plan.
They're just taking the existing water that's going to the brook and getting it underground instead of running through the building.
Underground to the brook?
To the brook, where it's going in.
Instead
So
of,
they're gonna be
instead of having a
Running
water
out, it's now all going
retention,
behind Jeff's house.
underground.
instead of having a water
tunnel or
retention
something, a
system
pipe.
that we require of most
They're
residents
just
when they do work.
upgrading their
Oh, that's a whole nother topic.
stormwater system.
But they didn't do water retention when they added to the school, when they added to the parking lot, when they added to other things.
That's what's happening.
And I will say, the last thing before the school board, actually Dan helped bring this up, was we did explain the environmental commission's request to ban helium balloons at school functions, and we discussed plastic straws. Moving on, the Chamber of Commerce has a street fair, very busy weekend coming up, and a food festival on April 27th and 28th. So come, grab a bite to eat after the Little League parade, then go to the Northern Valley Earth Fair. Everyone in town should come around. They, the chamber had a very nice idea. They are going to have, let's see if I get the name right, a contest for the prettiest storefront. And they're looking to give out some prizes. They're gonna judge the storefronts June 1st, August 30th, October 15th. We would like the stores to beautify, flower pots, lighting, whatever they want, to kind of make our downtown business friendly. I thought that was a great idea. They're going to look to have some special sales day possibly. There are discussions with that as well. There was a discussion about some networking events on June 5th. This will be their spring networking event at Axia from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And then we discussed about Piermont paving, if that will affect the street fair. So Lizette, do you know this? So Piermont paving. So
Piermont,
April
we're
27,
still,
28.
we're still waiting for approval from CSX to move forward. They're holding up.
Are you kidding me?
What are they,
I
what
told
kind of
everyone
approval
that.
do we need anymore?
They are dragging their
But
feet
what,
and
I thought
we're,
we finished the approvals process.
we did our work. DOT is fine with it. Now we're waiting, now CSX is.
Why do we need to wait for CSX? We're not affecting the
Hang on a
traffic.
second, we need an explanation maybe from Billy Bob over here.
Because you're going into the CSX right away and you're paving all those parking lots.
But didn't we
It's a
have,
CSX pro-
didn't we have that
Hold on a
approval?
second, let me finish.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right? It's CSX, it's,
Louder for the public.
we haven't gotten the go-ahead from CSX Real Estate Division.
So I'm confused, don't the streets belong to the county and not CSX?
The streets belong to Tenafly. But
Okay, so the
They initially approved the bid specs,
Why are
but now they have to approve
That's
the
not my question though.
contract.
If
That's the approval we think.
if the streets belong to Tenafly, what does CSX have to do with it?
because
Basic question.
you're paving all those parking spaces along Piermont
That
Road.
abut the tracks,
And
that's their
those parking
property.
spaces.
So why do we
become-
not pave those? And pave the street?
Or why aren't we calling every single day? This is, I mean,
Well,
the
we are
residents are
calling
waiting.
Bill?
He's,
Come over here, Billy.
No, my question would be the following.
so Christine, there's your answer.
Once again, CSX is holding up our paving of Gilmont Road. What is the downside
It's ridiculous.
if we just go ahead and do the project? What is CSX going to do?
So you,
You mean talking about because
That
of
would
the
be closed
crossings?
session.
What are the
The
crossings?
parking lots.
Oh, the parking lots.
The parking lots, that abut.
Let's add it to closed session.
Yeah, that's, all right.
One more thing, there was a discussion about adding into the budget the $60,000 to explore both parking lot O and lighting.
There's not parking lot O. It's not
Okay.
in the budget.
Well, just
Which
to
is nice.
discuss, just that general line item to discuss
Where's discussion where?
improvements to downtown, at the Chamber of Commerce
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
So amongst the businesses unanimously agreed that, they need better lighting in downtown, and they would like the DPW now to make sure that the bulbs in parking lot O are at least in working order for the existing lights.
Did the
And
chamber say they were gonna donate $50,000 for this?
Yeah.
No, we want the lights in parking lot O to work. That's what we
parking
want.
lot O is our lights right now, and a lot of them are not working.
We don't want the part paving. Better ways to spend money.
Okay, so that's the
When's the way
chamber.
home?
And Christine, that wasn't the sentiment of
Be
the
careful,
chamber,
it's
so
dark.
please don't. So the next thing, is the 125th committee. And the 125th committee, I have to tell you, we've had two good meetings, different residents at each meeting, and people are excited, although we're getting very small turnouts.
All
But we
three
do
of them.
appreciate people's time. So we have come up with a short list of things we would like to focus on. The main two events that we have are going to be a vintage old-fashioned carnival with possibly adding in a vintage baseball game, and correct me if I'm wrong. I guess there's players that come with antique uniforms, they play the old-fashioned baseball, which would be very cute. The second thing we're going to focus on is a history night that is has a little bit more gravitas, that really focuses on the historical figures in town, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, for example, women's suffrage at that moment, and so that will be late November. The other two things that have been floated around is a field day football game, or field day football plus other events. Tenafly versus Cresskill, make the best 125th win. We haven't reached out to Cresskill. And the last thing we're gonna work on, hopefully in coordination with the HPC, is a scavenger hunt that our kids and families can pick up. We're gonna ask the library to help us run this, we hope they say yes. Promote it, you could pick up, a map, please find the following, and then all summer or all fall, kids can go around town and learn the history with a scavenger hunt. Both groups of individuals and residents agreed we should not be fundraising, and both groups agreed not to do really a gala.
They like the picnic.
They like the picnic, they think they want it more casual. So in that vein, we do have some really good marketing opportunities. The first thing that's coming up is the Firehouse event on the 15th. We have to decide if we want to spend money on signage, and if the t-shirts the mayor brought out want to be sold, we have to decide how much we're selling them for. So if we're selling and how much. And then I think
Susan,
that's-
can we sell merchandise?
Can we sell merchandise?
So I know there's other towns that are selling T-shirts and coins for events,
Right.
so. But they set up a dedicated trust, and the money goes in there, and then you use it towards the event.
So do we need to set up a dedicated trust by
Yes.
May 15th?
Let's
You
make our
need a
first sale
trust
first.
to put the money in if you're selling stuff.
Well, I mean, that's
So-
It
coming up
has
in
to
a
go
month.
through the DLGS.
The new residents, what's the time that we meet up?
5 p.m. is the new residents event at the firehouse. There's ice cream to greet.
What day is that?
May
That's a
15th.
Wednesday.
May 15th?
It's a Wednesday, May 15th. Mayor, I hope you come. Okay.
It's an election year, of course it's coming.
I come every year.
Was there any discussion about?
Most people don't.
I was there.
We didn't have the meeting, Roxana. We didn't have the meeting. It's postponed.
Chamber project on lunches.
Oh, and the last thing, for the chamber meeting is there was a discussion for the local businesses, I just wanna make sure everyone's aware of this. It was brought up to the school board side as well. Our local vendors, our local businesses have been serving lunch in our schools for what I understand, over 20 years. The schools are now moving to privatize to a single vendor, and that is a decline in business for our local stores that do the lunch business. It's a very profitable thing for them. I know we've had a new business move into town, Santorini, which was in Demorest, just to do the lunches. That was a big focus of why he moved. And so we wanna, we've asked, the chamber has asked in letters, and I've discussed it with the school board members, to support our local businesses if possible, to find a way to add them back into the program. And so the chamber, I shouldn't say we, the chamber's in discussion with the school board on this issue.
Well, once
The
again,
HSAs.
this
And the
is
HSAs.
a good example of unintended consequences. The intent of making this change was reasonable, but they failed to recognize the impact it would have on local businesses. So hopefully, they will reconsider. You done, Lauren?
I'm done.
Mark, you.
That's a lot.
Nothing to
No,
Just a couple Monday night, there was the library board meeting. Friday, May the 10th, the library will not open till 1 p.m. because they're doing a training session. They have their own audit, and their auditor found absolutely no recommendations. They passed very, very well. August the 5th, they're going to have a book signing event with the mayor of Richfield, Anthony Suarez, who wrote a great book. He was one of the many political figures to get indicted during Christie's last year. He was the only one that was found innocent. But that didn't mean he didn't have a tremendous impact on his life, his career as a lawyer, and his family. So it's a very interesting book, which the library has. And last but not least, they're looking about doing another little library. They have one over by the bus shelter, and I didn't know this, but apparently it's extremely successful. Lots of people take books, and lots of people leave books. So they're looking about doing another one maybe over here. So we'll see. That's my report.
Can I beg your forgiveness on something? Jeff and I had a question for the consent agenda, but because we are rushed to get it done, I forgot to bring it up. We just need an understanding. In the consent agenda, and now neither Lizette nor Bob is here, we had a study for the streets in Tenafly, and it showed some sort of a continuous plan. We just need to understand this is a one-time fee, not something that we are now tied in on a continuous basis for the future years.
Which
Well, when they come back, we'll ask them.
Okay, thank you.
Under new business, would somebody like to make a motion?
Sorry, what was the question?
Under new business.
Yes, I
All
move
right,
to
take
approve
advance.
the provisional
Introduce and
budget.
pass first reading ordinance 1908 through 1911 and set the hearing for May 7th, 2019 at 8 p.m. or as soon thereafter in the Tenafly Municipal Center.
A second, please. Adelini?
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Lennon?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Zena?
Yes.
Can I make a comment about the budget, please?
Can we please, I'd like to.
I want to thank Lizette and Susan for the work on the budget. And the auditor came back and said the reserve can be used for relieving the additional increases. I just want to say that people like Lauren, Jeff, Vino, and I, who spend days and nights going through the budget, made the same comment when we said, okay, we don't need so much of the difference. There is so much of a difference between, but we were at that time said, well, we should keep that for the extra, basically, budget for, and it's thanks to the auditors that basically kind of gave us a shot in the arm saying, yes, you are right. Those changes that we proposed in cutting the budgets were somehow now agreed by the auditor when it said the reserve can be now used for the extra relief of the funds. And specifically to thank Lauren, Jeff, Vino, and who spend hours and hours and days looking through every single detail of the budget to make sure that everything is correct.
Before we proceed any further, I need to read into the record the titles of the ordinances, so I'll do that right now. I apologize. Ordinance 19-08 is an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Section 2-26 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly entitled Department of Recreation, and more particularly amending Section 2-26.5 entitled Appointment of Members. Ordinance 19-09 is an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Section 2-48 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly entitled Length of Service Award Program for active volunteer members of the Tenafly Volunteer Fire Department and Tenafly Volunteer Ambulance Corps, and more particularly amending Schedule A Volunteer Fire Department. Ordinance number 19-10 is calendar year 2019 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. And the last ordinance, 19-11, is a bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements by the Borough of Tenafly, appropriating the aggregate amount of $2,728,000. Therefore, including a grant in the amount of $212,000 expected to be received from the State of New Jersey Department of Transportation, and authorizing the issuance of $2,598,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
I have a comment. I also want to thank everyone for their hard work on this budget. Just so the public knows, the municipal side of your budget is only getting raised 1.1%. We have brought it down from our perspective, I think it was 1.6.
1.9.
1.9 when we first started.
1.9, then down to
Yes, so we have tried to make intelligent cuts to keep this budget as close and as low as possible. I want to thank everyone for adding in things to renew and revitalize our green spaces, our parks, our playgrounds, our fields. I'm thrilled that we're getting automatic recycle trucks. I'm thrilled that we kept most of our salaries within the contractual 2% cap as well. So I know this has been a good budget process, and I hope the school comes in tight as well, and so that our taxes can get lower.
Want to call the roll?
Did we make a motion?
We need a motion to adopt.
A motion to adopt, Jeff?
Want to do one by one, or which one?
No,
No.
So moved.
Adopt.
you just say so moved.
I move to introduce, pass, first reading, all these set, oh, no, that's,
No,
I
it's
move, which,
Is there a motion to adopt resolution 19-175?
oh, adopt resolution 19-175, which introduces the 2019 municipal budget, set the hearing date for May 7th, 2019 at 8 p.m. or soon thereafter in the council chambers of Tenafly Municipal Center for the hearing of the adoption of the 2019 municipal budget.
Second.
A sec, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Menon?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Zena?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that you are back here, can I ask the question? I'm sorry, I didn't ask the question when it should have been. Jeff and I have question about the $25,000 study that we have asked for, the study of the roads and everything. And it has like a continuous type of study to be done. We just want to make sure that we do not commit the borough to more than 1 year study. It's not an ongoing type commitment. Okay.
No,
that's-
the only ongoing thing is you have the list, and you can, every year after year, you can just check off your,
Thank you so much.
that's all
That's
that is.
what we wanted to
No, we don't
understand.
have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to read the following proclamation, hopefully voice holds out. Whereas the last Friday of April 26, 2019 is designated as National Arbor Day, which is a day set aside to promote the planting of trees, tree conservancy, and appreciation of our environment. And whereas the Borough of Tenafly has promoted tree conservancy and planting for many years. Whereas trees in our community increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our borough. And whereas the Borough of Tenafly has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Tenafly do proclaim April 26th, 2019 as Arbor Day, and urge all citizens to celebrate this day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And at this particular point, yes.
Is there any way we can do a tree planting on the 26th?
On when?
On the April 26th? Is that too early?
Can you arrange for that?
And now that we're talking about it, Bob, the schedule of 173s, when do we have a chance to start?
I'm looking for symbolic one, but
And, okay, the fact that when do you think we're gonna have?
That shouldn't be for another 2 weeks, I should
Okay, so by May we should have.
if you're doing it
Thank
out
you.
there.
Is anybody asking about the middle school
Okay,
distribution of trees?
I'd like to ask Bill to read the closed session.
Sure. Resolved in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, the mayor and council will go into closed executive session, discuss the following matters. We have a personnel matter involving the senior center director. We have an update on collective bargaining, contract negotiations. We have attorney-client privilege matters, the plaza litigation. We have a legal matter involving the borough's participation in a regional recreational program. And we have another legal matter involving, just came up, the CSX leases and
property acquisition.
and lastly, on property acquisition. This will be taken to the meeting and release of public time, matters resolved, after this closed executive session, the mayor and council will reconvene in this Richard D. Wilson Committee Room to adjourn this public meeting.
Motion, please.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no second.